Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Broccoli Fanfics, back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Had Multi-Personality Quirk. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Mommy, something's wrong. I walked up to my mother and pulled on her pants, the only thing I could reach at the time, even though she was sitting down at her desk. I was a very short child. It was 2 days past my 4th birthday and the unexplained phenomenon had only gotten worse. What's wrong, honey? Mom shut her computer and turned to face me. I can't remember, I replied, and my mother just smiled and shook her head. Okay, well, come back when you remember what's wrong. Okay, Mom moved to go back to her work, but I stopped her. No, I mean I can't remember anything. This immediately got my mother's attention as she twirled around to face me in record time. What do you mean? I could hear the panic in her voice even though she tried to hide it. Well, a few seconds ago I woke up playing with the finger paints, but I don't remember doing that. The last thing I remember is leaving school yesterday. But now it's not yesterday, it's today. I don't understand what's happening. I started to panic, because I had never heard of anything like this and didn't understand what was going on. Okay, calm down, Izuku. Are you sure you can't remember anything else? Mom asked her question and I thought really hard about the answer. I mean, I can remember things from before, but I can only remember school from yesterday. I answered, so this started yesterday. My mom asked another question and I nodded. That means one of two things, but we're going to ignore the other option for right now. Izuku, honey, this could be part of your quirk, okay? Do you understand that? This could be my quirk. I got my quirk. My fear over the unknown dissipated as I latched onto the idea. I've always wanted to have my quirk ever since Kakin got his. He has such a cool quirk, perfect for a hero. I'm not sure yet. Give me one moment and I'll get an appointment with a quirk specialist. Does that sound good with you? My mother asked. I immediately yelled yes and ran to get my shoes. 15 minutes later, although it felt like forever to me, my mom and I were in the car, driving towards the quirk specialist. The entire building was white, from the hallways to the rooms. Nurses, doctors, and therapists moseyed around. It was a very plain place, but I looked around in awe. The two of us stopped in a waiting room. Other kids around my age talking quietly. Hey, Mom. She looked over towards me. Do you think I'll have a powerful quirk? She smiled. Of course, honey. Quirks are very interesting things. I'm sure yours has a bunch of different aspects of it yet to be discovered. I smiled as well. This is so cool. 30 minutes after that we were finally called into a room. A nurse was waiting for us and started asking me questions. So what have you been noticing that's weird? Her voice was very kind and smooth. Her smile was the same. My memory is missing entire sections of the day. I proudly said exactly what my mom had told me to. The nurse's eyes widened in surprise before getting her composure back. Wow, can you tell me more about that? At this point my mom cut in and told her how I have been interacting with her basically the same throughout the day but apparently cannot remember anything I did. Thus the test started. Well, there wasn't really anything to do because you can't really test memory loss, but they brought in someone to make sure it was my quirk. Apparently that person's quirk allowed them to see an aura around where someone's quirk affects. My aura was mostly around my head. Still, even with the lack of tests that normally had to happen, it still took a whole hour for them to finally decide what my quirk is. At the moment we cannot truly say what your son's quirk is capable of, Mrs. Midoriya. The only thing we really know is that it takes away his memory for parts of the day. I'm sorry you had to stay here so long to only really leave with the same knowledge you started with. But that's how it usually is in children. The more your son grows and tries to use this quirk, the more functions and hidden abilities he may find. Now, he turns to me. What would you like to call it? I start thinking, but my mom cuts in before I can say anything. How about memory lapse? She recommends. Perfect. I yell. Wow, I can't believe I've finally gotten a quirk. I definitely need to practice it or else I'll never be a hero. But how? I went through a lot of options, but I didn't have enough control over my power to do basically anything. So I asked my mom, though I don't know, honey, how about you start with something small, like trying to remember the parts of the days you forget, and then go from there. I know, I can't remember stuff, so I'll just write it down. If Mom's right and I do everything normally, then I will probably be able to write down whatever I do. It's perfect. My internal monologue ended right as the car was parked. Not even waiting for Mom to get out of the car, I bolt out and run to our apartment. Sadly, the door was locked, so I had to wait, but that only took a couple seconds. Once it was open, I rushed into my room, got a piece of paper and a pen, and wrote a note. Hi, if you're seeing this and don't remember writing it, then we're the same. Please respond. As soon as I put the pencil down, I blinked. I blinked a bit in confusion. For some reason, I was in a completely different room than I was a few minutes ago, and the sun was back up. What was happening? Slipping off my bed, I walked to the kitchen where my mom was talking on the phone. Just don't understand. This is nothing like Hasashi or my quirks. How did this happen? Yeah, I guess. Wow, really? Okay, well, maybe we can figure out how to turn it off. It's pretty inconvenient, honestly. Yeah. Okay, bye. Seeing she was finished, I spoke up. Hey, mommy, what happened? She looked concerned and kind of scared. I couldn't help but feel like it was my fault. Honey, your Quirk came in. Do you remember what happened? She asked carefully. I shook my head. Turns out your Quirk makes your memory spotty. We'll work on figuring how to turn it off together though. So it's fine. It didn't seem fine. She looked worried. I smiled though, pretending to fall for her false optimism. Okay, mommy. Well, I'm going to go play with All Might, I said before running back to my room to play with my action figures. It was then I noticed the note on my desk. It was written in my handwriting. Hi, F. I certainly didn't remember writing it, so I responded with, I didn't write it, and went back to playing Heroes. I was interrupted a couple hours later by my mom calling me for dinner. Running and I slid onto my seat and smiled wide at the sight of Katsuden, my favorite. Thanks, mommy, I shouted in excitement. You're welcome. She smiled, though I could see that she seemed off. I didn't comment. We ate in silence until she spoke up. So I was thinking we could work some with your Quirk. See if we can control it. I smiled brightly. Yeah, I bet it'll be helpful when I become a hero. Maybe I can use it on other people too, to make them forget or remember stuff or something. She looked even more pale. Well, maybe we can work on using it on other people when you get older. We wouldn't want someone to forget something important. Okay, mommy. I was a little disheartened but let it slide. Listen, Izuku. I don't know how good of an idea it would be to be a hero anymore. She was clearly trying to say it nicely, but I still felt tears fill my eyes. What? Why? I have a Quirk, don't I? It's not fit for hero work, okay? I'm worried you'll be hurt if you try to go down the hero path. Or you might forget useful information during an investigation, or about a certain villain. I think you'd just get in the way. She looked like she wanted to take it back, but it wasn't like she was wrong. That didn't stop me from crying though. She got up and wrapped her arms around me. I'm so sorry. I wish it was different. That wasn't what I needed though. As with last night when my mom tried to put me to sleep, I found myself restless. I quietly took out my toys and played Heroes. At a certain point I began to zone out and felt weird, like I wasn't really there. After a few moments of staring and blinking, I was gone. I was pushed into consciousness by something I didn't understand yet. I looked around the vaguely familiar room and saw that, as before, it was dark out. However, unlike before, there was a note sitting on the desk. Wait, so there are others than just me. That's so cool. I can't believe it. I wonder if they're going through the same things I am. Like the weird forgetting stuff and then suddenly waking up in a room you don't remember. Although, the last time this happened to me I just stayed in this room. That was super weird. I was so confused. I guess I'm still confused, but at least there is someone else going through this. 2 people. That's great. Wait, I guess I should probably tell them I'm here too. What to write? I slowly made my way over to where the note and the single pen laid on the desk and began to write. I didn't write it too. I'm Yamikumo. Who are you? There, that seems good enough. With that done, I began to explore the room. Even though it was extremely late out, I felt no need to go to sleep. Actually, I had never felt the need to go to sleep, which I do believe isn't normal. The room was covered in All Might merch, along with other hero merchandise. I slowly inspected the room, picking things up and moving them to possibly discover why I am where I am, and also learn about the person whose room I was currently in. So far, all I had discovered was they really loved heroes. Every corner of the room was covered in something related to them. I even leafed through a few books only to discover that they were based on All Might or someone similar. Wow, this person really wants to be a hero. Soon, almost all of the room was reorganized, because it was a mess and I can't understand how anyone could sleep at night with all of those faces staring directly into their souls. During the reorganization, I had discovered a few trinkets that I began to play with as I waited for my time to leave. What I had was a few paper clips and some missing pencils. Slowly, but surely, I began to wrap the paper clips around the bottom of the pencil and folded them how I wanted them to look. Okay, I talked to myself quietly for some reason. I guess there was someone else in the house that I didn't want to wake up. If the paper clips go at this angle while wrapped around the pencil like this, then it should be able to stand up on its own. A few minutes later, and some destroyed paper clips later, I created a pencil that standed perfectly upright. Wow, that was really fun. I hope the others enjoy my little gift for them. At that point I had realized that my time was almost up. Or at least, this is when I went to sleep last time, but who knows? I hope I can do this again. It was nice to leave a note for the others, and who knows, maybe there will be another one. Oh, I'm in my room. I turned to look at the clock. Wow, it's been a long time. I didn't know I could look at those pictures for that long. Wait, I must have not eaten. But I don't feel hungry. Well, whatever, I guess. I look around to try and find the book I was looking at. It was a bunch of landscapes, some with paintings of them next to it, others just by themselves. They were so pretty. It's not here. I guess I must have put it some other place. I get up and start walking towards the bookshelf to try and find it. While I was walking, I saw a new piece of paper on my desk. I didn't write that. Maybe it was Mom. Now curious, I go pick it up. What is this? Who's Yamikumo? I pick up the pencil next to it and write a little note. What is happening? Akatani Mikumo. How are you? Satisfied with my answer, I go back to finding my book. I'm sure this will all be explained later. I also noticed that there's a standing pencil on my desk as well. I didn't make that either. Strange. Quickly I turn on my light and go back to the bookshelf, finding it quite easily. By the time I've gotten into my bed, I've found my page and are looking at the landscapes once again. A couple seconds afterwards, my mom opens the door and pokes her head in. Izuku. She keeps calling me that. Is Izuku a nickname for Mikumo? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing up? I kinda motion to my book. Did you have trouble sleeping? I shake my head. She looks at me strange but then just kind of shrugs. Well, okay then. I'm going to turn off the light and you need to go to sleep. I know you can sleep late tomorrow but still. But that the woman flicked the light switch, closed my door, and went back to doing whatever she was before she saw my light. Placing the book next to my bed, I laid down, pulling my All Might covers up to my chin. Why do I have so much All Might merch? I mean, he's a good hero but I'm not obsessed with him. I guess they were presents. There's been a lot of strange things happening. Weirdly, even though it was 3 in the morning, I wasn't tired at all. Probably because the only thing I had been doing was reading and thinking for the entire day. But whatever the case was, it took me another hour for me to fall asleep. Lunch break was basically the only time I could actually hang out with Kaken. Well, that and the weekend. The two of us sat in the courtyard, eating bentos and talking. So, how's Deku? I ask. Deku is one of my alters, for lack of a better word. After a lot of trial and error, I soon realized that I wasn't losing memory. I was just not existing for certain hours of the day. Deku was awake from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's really all I know about him. The most annoying thing about my quirk is that we don't share memory. I only specifically remember what I did. He's normal, I guess. Didn't get to talk to him a lot yesterday because your fucking mom needed him. But whatever. Bakugo began to dig into his food and quickly changed the conversation. Shouldn't you get started on your homework? When what my friend said registered, I immediately started going through my backpack for the homework due next period. I'm the only one awake during school, so I'm the only one who really has academic knowledge, which means I'm the only person who can do the homework. I do morning homework during homeroom, and afternoon homework during lunch. It's annoying, but it works. Also, shitty nerd, why did I see Yamikumo climbing out your window last night? Does he just forget that I don't know? The real question is, why were you up that late? Also, I don't know Kaken, we don't share memories. He was probably sneaking out to get a snack or something. Yamikumo is awake from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m., usually spending that time making some weird invention or getting a late night snack. A weird effect of my quirk is that my body doesn't need sleep at all. So while I'm not awake all that often, my alters are basically always active. I don't need to tell you why I was awake, but if you must know, it was because I was practicing my quirk. Bakugo replied to my question and I laughed a bit. I bet Aunt Mitsuki got really mad at you for that. I had rarely met Aunt Mitsuki, but she really had an explosive personality. I'm surprised she wasn't the one to have the explosive quirk. Yeah, but that old hag has better get used to it because I'm going to be practicing a lot more. Kaken replied and I just smiled. Well, invite me to your funeral. I commented and he just glared. After that, lunch is a really silent affair. Kaken needs to eat to have energy to train, and I need to do my homework. That's not to say that I don't train. Well, I don't. But with the bruises I find sometimes and the muscle mass I'm gaining, I'm pretty positive either Yamikumo or Deku is. Probably not Mikumo. He doesn't seem to be a very active person. But what do I know? I frantically finished my English homework and moved on to math. Thankfully, that was the only homework assigned before lunch, and I'm really good at both subjects. I mean, I'm good in every subject, but that's only because basically the only thing I do is school, except for weekends. I bet most people would hate this, but at least I never forget anything. You still trying to be a hero, shitty nerd? I nod and he scoffs. How the hell are you gonna manage that? With only 7 hours to practice and everyone thinking you have a shitty-ass quirk. Well, I don't have a fantastic quirk, Kaken, so they won't be totally wrong. Also, I train during the weekends. He just kinda looked at me and I glared back. But do you know, for certain, that the UA entrance exam is based on strength? Muscle mass may not help you at all. I know that. I have a plan to get Yamikumo to make me a support item, like a handmade taser or something. The only problem is learning how to fight. But I'll burn that bridge when I get to it. Just wish I wouldn't have to keep writing notes to them. Takes a long time and sometimes they don't even see it. Bakugo just grunted in answer and motioned to my homework, which I had stopped working on. 2 by 2 plus 11x plus 12 equals 0. What is x? The question asked. Should I show my work? Technically, I do it all in my head, but that might make it seem like I cheated if I only write the answer down. Oh, whatever, it's the last question, she's not gonna care. X equals 4, 3. I scribbled out, right as the bell rang. Woohoo, done just in time. I quickly pack up my stuff and walk into my classroom, going and sitting down in my seat. People's seats are basically decided based on their social status. My quirk isn't useless, per se, but people think I have no control over it and thus they don't really care about me. The only reason I'm not in the very back is because if I can figure out how to use it on other people, then it'd actually be super villainous. And they don't want to get on my bad side just in case. Actually, it's probably mostly because I'm friends with Kaken, who sits all the way in the front. Everyone, well besides Kaken, thinks that my quirk is a memory-altering quirk. It used to take away entire sections of the day because I couldn't control it, leaving me not knowing anything I did that day. Slowly throughout the years I gained better control of it and usually will remember the entire day. But sometimes, usually when I go to sleep, I loosen my grip and forget stuff. In reality, mine alters and I just write notes to each other to tell us what they did so we can act like we know what's going on. Not a foolproof process, but it works. Class was easy, as always, but it went a little over the time. Now I only had 5 minutes to get to my locker and get my stuff before I started sleeping. Bakugo also noticed this and stayed close by in case he needed to explain what was going on to Deku. I got to my locker pretty quickly, but was only halfway through putting the stuff in my bag when my vision started to blur and my whole body stopped moving. A few seconds later and I was gone for the day. Waking up was a weird process. It included a lot of blinking and slowly gathering awareness of my surroundings before I could function. After a few minutes of staring at what I assumed was my locker, a hand moved into vision and I turned to see Katsuki next to me. Since Izuku and I both see him often, the three of us made an agreement to call him different names so as to not confuse him too much. Sup, Deku? He raised a hand in greeting. Hello, Katsuki. I missed you, I replied, smiling. TCH, you saw me a couple days ago, dork. Even less for you. Here, I'll handle that, he said, grabbing the bag at my feet and putting away my books. Thanks, Kat. And I know, but I always miss you, you're the nicest. I grabbed his arm once he finished with the bag and began to walk us toward the door to the school when Katsuki interrupted me by placing a hand on my arm. Whatever, I need to use the bathroom, so wait for me in the front. I put on a fake smile and waved as he ran off. Sighing slowly, I began to walk towards the front, waiting for the inevitable. Well, if it isn't little Deku. Where's your guard dog? I only had a few seconds to brace myself before I was shoved into the locker next to me and cornered like a painful and unappealing kabedon. In front of me were three of the boys that usually do this, not that I could name them. He's in the bathroom, I said, trying to ignore the fear bubbling up in my stomach. The three boys giggled and puffed themselves up, trying to intimidate me. It doesn't matter that it was a shitty power show. They still throw mean punches. Well, I'd say we've got us a good few minutes then. Aye, boys. The other two snickered as the leader threw his knee into my gut. I keeled over and dropped to the floor, unable to hold my own weight. Kicks rained down on me as I curled into a ball, covering my head. Useless fucking fag. I'll give you a beating you'll be forced to remember. Stop fucking pretending you're better than us, walking around smiling like a little shit all the time. The boys continued to shout insults at me as I sat in a ball on the floor, praying for Katsuki to find me. After a few minutes they tired themselves out and walked away smiling like idiots and joking around. I coughed as I sat up and leaned my aching body against the locker. After a few moments I heard the sound of Katsuki sauntering down the hall. He caught sight of me and jogged over. God, again. He sighed and helped me up. I hissed at the feeling of my bruised back and ribs shifting and groaned. Of course. What, you thought I'd get a day off? Pshaw. I giggled as he bumped against me, still keeping a firm grip on my waist to keep me upright. ... You'll come to my house if you need me tonight, right? If you can, that is. His voice leaked with care as I limped along. I'll try. I smiled at him before changing the subject. We talked about nothing and everything as we walked back to my house. After Katsuki dropped me off at my front door, I took a moment to gather myself before entering the quiet house as souffled as I could. I kept my head down even as my name was called. Izuku, you're late. And don't you dare give me that I forgot bullshit. Inko grabbed my wrist and dragged me into the kitchen. I knew better than to respond and instead made sure to keep my head lowered and my steps short and stumbled to allow her the feeling of power. Now I'm leaving in an hour and expect my dinner to be made and the dishes done before I leave. Enjoy. I watched her shadow recede on the floor before I looked at the pile of plates in the sink inside. Ever since my quirk came in, she's become more and more annoyed with my constant forgetting. She has this whole idea now that she can do whatever she wants to me and I'll just forget, making it fine. I took out ingredients and got started on the udon she especially likes when she goes on afternoon trips. I used to think she went to the park, but now I'm not naive enough to believe she's not drinking. Or maybe she's trading the food I make to a homeless person for drugs or something because she never seems to eat it, coming home starving and expecting another dinner. Once I finished her usual noodle soup and the dishes, I found myself aching from standing on my injuries too long and went upstairs for a nap. Not that my body needs sleep, it just gets exhausted from overwork mostly. Something to do with my quirk. I slipped into my room and flopped down on the bed, resisting groaning from the ache in my chest. I was woken up, not having even remembered falling asleep, a couple hours later by the front door slamming and the crash of what I assumed was a breaking bottle. I jolted upright before falling back down from intense vertigo. "Hey, down here, kid. I'm hungry and expect dinner." I groaned at the sound of my very, very drunk mother and slowly stood before slipping downstairs. Dashing across the hall to avoid her seeing me, I ran to the kitchen and took out the leftover stir-fry from last night before heaving it in the microwave. Sweating with each passing second until it beeped, I stood and prayed Mom's patience would last that long. It was a godsend when the meal was done before Mom stormed the kitchen. Grabbing the hot plate, I quickly walked to the living room and passed her the food, head down. It was only when she slapped me across the face that I looked up. "You idiotic nuisance. Guess what you did, huh? Forgot the chopsticks. I'll teach you to forget shit like some slow dog." She grabbed his arm in a bruising grip before dragging him upstairs to his room and throwing him on the floor. "I guess it must be hereditary, huh? 'Cause I somehow forgot to feed you for the next week." She slammed the door shut behind her. Not thinking to listen for her footsteps, I reached for a piece of paper in order to write down what had happened for Yamikumo and the others. The door slammed open again and I looked up to see Mom in the doorway, shaking in rage. "You pathetic boy, and you're writing everything down, huh? Why can't you just be normal and remember shit instead of writing your stupid little notes all over the place?" She grabbed the paper from my hands and ripped it up, throwing the pieces in my face. "Don't let me catch you writing those little notes again." Taking her second loud leave of the night, she shut the door and stormed down the stairs. Not having the willpower to attempt another note, I crawled into my bed and fell asleep. Fuck, that hurts. My sometimes pleasant, but not usually when the person awake before you is bullied, coming into existence was ruined by pain in multiple places. "Deku, what have you done now?" I asked the question to no one, well knowing I wouldn't get an answer. Once I got over my initial "what the fuck is going on," I immediately started to catalog the damage. "Okay, it hurts to breathe, but not enough for ribs to be broken, probably only bruised," I muttered to myself, as quiet as I could so I wouldn't wake up Mom. I sat up, barely flinching thanks to my amazing pain tolerance, and moved to go to the desk where Deku and I agreed to store some medical supplies. I got my legs over the side of the bed, but once I tried to stand up I quickly fell back down. "And there's a sprained ankle." "Lovely. Thanks so much, Deku." I successfully stood up on my second try and hobbled to the desk. Once there, I collapsed in the chair next to it and began to rummage through the drawer to find what I was looking for. Soon enough, I got the 2 ace bandages for my ribs and my ankle. I knew that both arms were also covered in bruises, but not enough for me to even really think about it. They weren't a priority. I lifted my shirt to see that the bruises I could feel were pretty ugly on the outside. Yay, that looks lovely. At least Mikumo will be delighted to see that our chest looks like a piece of art. I unrolled one of the bandages and began to wrap it around my chest. With a grace and speed that only practice gives you, I was soon finished with my most important injury. Then I moved to my ankle. Ankles were easier to wrap, because I didn't have to keep changing hands to get the bandages around myself. However, they had more angles, which meant the bandages had to go in the right spots for the most use. Once that was done, I examined my arms and was pleased to see that they weren't that bad off. There are multiple light bruises and a few more painful ones, but none of them were particularly worrying. That's good. I wouldn't want anything else to affect my patrol tonight. Wait, I have to patrol tonight. Damn you Aldera students. What have I, well, Deku or Izuku, done to deserve this? Ever since I was 10, I began creating a patrol to get through my boring night. I couldn't do that much at home without waking Mom, so I got bored pretty quickly. Soon, I took to the streets, and then I took to the rooftops. Within the past 4 years, I've made a name for myself as a pretty famous vigilante named Yamikumo. Maybe it's not that original to use my actual name, but it's not like they can use that against me since everyone knows me as Midoriya Izuku. Ugh, is it even worth it to go out tonight? I really don't want to, it's so much effort, and I hurt all over. However, I did just create those mini cameras that I want to test out, and I can't exactly wait because then Mikumo or Izuku might find them and get rid of them. Well, Mikumo will use them for some random artist thing, or just to be a bitch, and Izuku will get rid of them. Either way, they would be dead to me. I don't know why I always monologue to myself, but it does break the silence of the night a little. You know what? It'll be a quick in and out. No one will know I'm around and I won't stress any injury. I began to get dressed. For my outfit, I had a black hoodie, black ski mask with covered eyes and mouth, black pants, black gloves, and holo combat boots. While the combat boots don't really go with the other stuff, they look too good to pass up. I was also decked out in secret pockets that contained a bunch of support items I created. Some of them include simple flashbangs, actual grenades, smoke bombs, tasers, lockpicks, a gun with tranquilizers, tripwire, and other random stuff I thought it would be fun to create. Once I was dressed, I scaled out the window and began to run along rooftops. I was almost done at around 1:48 in the morning. I set up my other 4 cameras in popular villain places and stopped at the last place I needed to be before heading home. Quickly, I wedged my mini camera between a few pipes and backed up a bit to make sure that no one could see it. Sadly, I had nothing to back the footage up to, so I just gave the cameras a lot of storage and hoped that no one would find them. With the last task down, I moved to begin climbing down the ladder, but stopped when I saw a scarf flying at me. Fuck, there's only one idiot hero that's out this early in the morning. I dodged the scarf, but landed badly on my ankle and flinched a bit. Eraserhead, fancy seeing you here. Now, could you stop being here, please? While I was speaking, I tried to make sure that none of my skin was showing. Eraserhead's quirk depended on being able to see skin. I knew this from experience. 3 years ago, I ran into him, and right as I was about to leap off a roof, he erased my quirk. Sadly, that meant that while my quirk was inactive, I didn't exist anymore. Without being able to control my body, I fell off the roof, and it's safe to say lots of bones were broken. You know me. The underground hero seemed surprised, and he halted his attack against me, but was still ready to strike at any moment. Do I know you? Of course I know you. I began to look around for escape routes, but other than throwing myself off the roof, there aren't any. Wait, do you not remember me? I'm betrayed, offended. I don't think I have the will to live anymore. Well, then why don't you tell me who you are and what you're doing here? Eraserhead didn't move, but his eyes glared into mine. I'm Yamikumo, at your service. I gave an exaggerated bow, and I could see the hero tense a little. So, you're not caught yet. Interesting. Aizawa shifted his weight, and I knew that he was preparing to strike at any moment. Well, not yet. And I would hope to keep it that way. So why don't you just pretend you never saw me and we can move on with our lives? Sound good? I chirped and saw the underground hero's eyes narrow. You know I can't do that. Eraserhead replied. Oh, but why not? I'm not doing any harm. And I'm probably wasting your time that you would love to be using for something else. I would love to be using this time differently too. It's a win-win. I countered, and the hero shook his head. Yamikumo, you're coming with me. The exact moment he lashed his scarf at me, I fell off the roof. Thank God it's only a 3rd story. I knew I couldn't outrun him with my ankle and ribs as they are, but I could hopefully get out of his eyesight before he gets over his shock. I straightened myself out as I fell through the air and tucked my hurt ankle. I then hit the ground with one foot and rolled to try to even out the impact. It didn't really work. I sprained the ankle, but I didn't break the other ankle, so I counted as a win. Once I got to my feet, I booked it outside the alley and got out of sight from the building as quickly as possible. Ah, home sweet home. Such a lovely place to be in. No one trying to kill me or arrest me. It's great, I muttered as I hauled myself through the window. I knew my time was almost up, so I quickly wrote a note and set it in my lap. As soon as that was done, my vision faded to black. Holy hell, I heard all over. God, what did Deku and Yamikumo do now? I look around to see that I'm sitting in our room, with a note in my lap. Mikumo, place this in Izuku's backpack after you've read it. Just so you guys know, I accidentally fell down the stairs when I was coming down from the roof, so that's where all the bruises came from, so don't worry too much. Sorry, Yamikumo. Are you serious? Well, it wasn't like I hadn't dealt with these kinda injuries before. I quickly take off ski mask covering my face. If I didn't know that Yamikumo was a vigilante, I would have thought he spent his time robbing banks. Because I have to deal with so much random shit, as well as waking up in places I don't know, Yamikumo decided it was probably fair for me to know about his nighttime activities. I'm pretty positive I'm the only one that knows though. Now that the ski mask is off, I can see a lot better. So, it's time to figure out how exactly I'm hurt. The gloves come off and I'm ready to deal with the throbbing pain coming from basically everywhere. Taking off the hoodie is the first step, but even that hurts like hell. Okay, I'm guessing my arm is hurt somehow. And my ribs. Not only is just taking off the hoodie painful, I also have to make sure I don't hit any secret pockets containing something deadly or otherwise dangerous. I don't want to accidentally get blown up. Turns out I don't really have to worry about the injuries on my upper body because they were already wrapped. And pretty well too. Fantastic. Thank you for some common courtesy, Yamikumo. I quickly take that statement back once I even touch one of the boots. Pain shoots through my ankles, making me bite my lip to keep from making noise. As it is, I'm breathing heavily, and are definitely going to have to break out the crutches, or maybe the wheelchair. I slowly untie the holographic footwear, and then loosen the laces to allow me to pull it off with little to no resistance. Still hurts like hell though. Fuck. Why do I have to deal with this shit? God damn you, Yamikumo. Or Deku. Ugh, whatever. The sock comes off after that and I see that the injury looks at least a couple hours old and already wrapped. Oh, no wonder it hurts like a bitch. You've been running on a sprained ankle. God damn it. I bet you were too full of adrenaline to even notice. So off to the next ankle. Both the shoe and sock come off with less resistance and less pain. But I can tell the ankle is sprained as well. The injury looks kinda new, so hopefully if I start icing it, it'll be less bad. But before I could wrap it, there were two things I needed to do. I quickly opened up the lowest drawer of the left side of the desk. It was a first aid drawer, complete with a needle and thread, which has gotten much more use than I like. The ace bandages were on the top, but I took out all of the supplies anyway. Wrapping my ankle was pretty easy, as I have way too much practice, so it only took a minute. But I still had one more thing to do before I could just relax and ice it. There was a secret compartment at the back of the first aid drawer that was made for Yamikumo's vigilante stuff. Taking all of the dangerous weapons and whatnot out of the secret pockets, I folded up all of his clothes and placed it in the compartment the exact way he found it tonight. Now I could actually start focusing on myself. Reaching under the bed, I take out the crutches we have stored and try to get myself into a standing position. Once that's done, I crack open the door and hobble to the kitchen, open up the freezer, and take 3 ice packs out of it. It doesn't take long for me to be back and situated in my room. Ice packs on both ankles and my arm, sitting by my desk, timer on my phone for 20 minutes so I wouldn't keep them on for too long. I stuffed blankets under the door before I sat down so I could turn the light on without it being noticeable from the outside. Now it's time to get going with what I need to do. A couple weeks ago, I had signed up for an art competition, sent in a few pictures of paintings I've done and other stuff to them to show them what I could do and help them decide whether or not I made the cut. And yesterday I finally got my results back in, but were too scared to read them. I forced myself to pick up the envelope sitting on the desk and opened it, bringing out the paper on the inside. Dear Midoriya Izuku, the first line read. I wish I could use my own name, but I don't technically exist, so this'll have to do. Makes my skin crawl anytime someone calls me that though. We are pleased to tell you that you have been accepted into this competition. I stopped reading any further, too excited by this new information. The rest of the letter was just stuff I already knew, like when I had to turn in my pieces and what the theme was. Domestic animals. The theme was domestic animals. Admittedly, I have never really painted anything besides landscapes, people, and some abstract stuff. The only animals that have ever shown up in my art were to fill up some space or add a little extra in my landscapes. And I'm pretty positive wolves, foxes, and the occasional bird don't count as domestic animals, so this was a little out of my comfort zone. But that's half the point. It's boring otherwise. I should probably have a reference to paint from if I'm going to paint something I've never really done before. But we don't have any animals in my house. I'm not going to paint a dog. I'm not really a big fan of those, and I have no idea how exactly would I find one that'd want to stay still enough for me to get a good idea of it and take some nice pictures that I can reference. What about a cat? I mulled it over in my head. Yeah, that should work. Oh, I know, I should go to a cat cafe. The second I tried to move, pain erupted from my ankles and ribs. Okay, maybe not. I'll stay in tonight and plan what it's going to look like. With great effort, I dragged myself into bed and laid down, already having a good idea of my next work of art. I think I'll do a black cat. The only problem is that doing so takes away the interesting colors, but I can get those points back if the background is really interesting. For this contest, none of these entries can have a defining background, like a forest or a room. It all has to be abstract. Oh, I know. What if I drew a large, green cat eye with the black cat stepping out of the pupil? That would be super impressive, especially if I can get the difference between the black of the pupil and the black of the cat correct so you can actually see it. Time flew by as I was figuring out the details, and soon my alarm was ringing. It was time for me to get up. My arm hurt considerably less, although my ribs and ankles made me curse out Yamikumo and Deku more than once. I took out the blankets from under my door, changed the wrappings, got dressed, and hobbled out to the land of the living. Ah, Izuku, you're up. Did you hurt yourself? Inko asked, looking at my crutches. Yeah, twisted my ankle a little bit, but I decided I should use the crutches just in case. And before you ask, no, I don't remember how. I think my quirk acted up because I was in pain or something. Disappointment flashed through her eyes and she started her daily rant about how I need to have better control over my quirk and other shit like that. Ignoring her, I limped over to get my food and basically put myself on autopilot. After food, I brushed my teeth, got in the car, and was dropped off at school. Getting myself up the stairs was the only hard part, but thankfully I had Bakugo to help me. By the time I was sitting down in Izuku's seat, my time was up and I could have my much-needed break. Why exactly are there crutches next to my desk? I look towards Kaken and he quickly motions to my arm, ribs, ankle, and then the class around him. Oh, so it was bullies this time. That must have sucked. I shifted my body to feel pain also coming from my other ankle. Okay, so bullies and Yamikumo. This is annoying but unavoidable, I guess. As the teacher droned on about polymers, my note-taking was interrupted by Kaken sliding his bag across the floor to me with his foot. What the? I peeked inside to see a paper bag sitting on top with my alters and my name written on it. I pulled out the bag and plopped it in my lap before sending the bag back. I opened it to reveal 3 somewhat new-looking phones sitting inside. I turned to look at Kaken only to see him mouth "for you" back at me. Well, that answered nothing. These must be for us, for privacy, I guess. Maybe we can make a group chat to share info amongst us. This is actually a really good idea. Now we don't have to worry about mixing up our lives with each other, and we can share memories more easily, and we don't have to worry about breaking the communal phone so often anymore. And Midoriya, I get that you're a prodigy or something, but please stop distributing class with your meaningless muttering. I looked up to see the entire class staring at me with scared gazes and immediately blushed. Sorry, sensei. I replied quietly before opening my notes again. I quickly picked up the bag and hid it in my backpack so no one would know. And then I kinda just phased everything out. Today's class was just review for a test, so I didn't have to care about anything until the bell rang. I mean, what was I going to forget when I am only cognizant during school? Or the weekends? Oi, Izuku. I turn around to see Kaken standing by my desk. The period is done. It's time to go to math. I groaned. Math was my easiest subject, but since some other people didn't get it right away, it was mostly just review. Every single day. Kaken sighed. Just get your coloring book out or some shit. But don't fucking tune everything out. It's a bad habit that you won't want to have when you get into UA. He started to walk into the hallway and I picked up my crutches before slowly following him. Cooing, oh, Kaken does care. Don't worry, I'll be sure to live up to your expectations and become a hero. He scoffed and, unsurprisingly, pushed me away. The coloring book in question was something that Mikumo had made. The artist had learned that I was really bored at school and decided to make something they could do that took up time. He bought a regular college-style notebook and sharpied in designs that I could fill in. Most of them were kinda mandala-shaped things, but they were pretty diverse. He also took the colored pencils and painted them to look like normal pencils so I wouldn't get in trouble. So that's how I spent my math class, finishing a page that I had started before. Coloring was always a pretty fun activity for me, and I could do it pretty well, although if you compared it to Mikumo's work it was trash. By the end of it though, I was really regretting that choice, because my arm was hurting like crazy. Even though it wasn't the arm I used to color, even holding down the paper was enough to agitate the injury. Not to mention hunching over was not the best choice for someone with bruised ribs. The rest of the day continued pretty much the same way, and I was super relieved to hear the final bell ring. I hobbled over to Kaken and was finally able to ask him about the phones. How did you get these? I motioned to my bag where they were stashed. He just looked at me like a dumbass. I have an fucking explosion quirk. It's not a new thing for me to accidentally blow my electronics to bits. My parents can afford it so they don't really care much. It's whatever. Now you can make a group chat or some crap with all your shitty alters so you don't have to keep wasting so much goddamn paper. Get your shit before it's Deku's turn to take the wheel. Will do. Thanks, Kaken. I woke up in my usual place this time, walking next to Katsuki on the way home from school. I almost fell over as I put too much weight on my ankles, not realizing I was on crutches. What the? I looked toward Katsuki for an answer, who just shrugged and kept walking. Oh, by the way, I finally got that third phone, so yours is in your backpack with the others, Katsuki said. Oh cool. Thanks, Katsuki. You're the best. I pouted as I realized that I couldn't hold his hand and my crutches at the same time. He seemed to notice my dilemma though and ruffled my hair. Since I had crutches and wasn't on the brink of passing out, he didn't bother walking me to my door and said his goodbyes at the crosswalk a few blocks before taking his turn toward his house. I sighed and began to hobble my way toward my own house, but was quickly interrupted by the group of boys that had been following us home. Bye-bye, Bakugo. No one to save you now, huh? I turned to look at the group of laughing boys, counting 6 in total, but was swiftly kicked in the stomach. I dropped my crutches as I was sent to the ground, hard. They always do that, don't they? I mean, it's effective, but still. I curled into a ball as the boys surrounded me. Giving up so soon? Oh come on, I thought this would be fun. I bet he's not even going to cry. This is just stupid. I tried to continue making myself seem pitiful in an attempt to get them to leave, but it only served to annoy them. Still yelling, one of the boys grabbed my hair and ripped my face from my arms, punching me hard in the nose. I cried out at the feeling of bone snapping, my eyes filling with tears against my will. Blood poured from my probably broken nose and the boys cackled. From there it was a drawn-out but precise beatdown. They drove their heels into my sprained ankles. They stuck their sharp-toed shoes into my ears and eyes. They stomped hard onto my bruised ribs. They got tired and left after the better part of an hour, leaving me with multiple broken ribs, even worse ankles, a broken nose, and burning ears and eyes that felt like someone had poured hot sauce in them. I slowly gathered the energy to grab my new phone from the bag I had thrown from my body in an attempt to save its contents and clicked on Katsuki's number. "Deku, what's up?" I could barely think, only giving him a groan in response. "Hang on, I'm on my way. Don't move." I almost wanted to tell him that I didn't think I could, but my throat was too dry to say anything. I simply groaned again. He arrived after a few minutes and sprinted over to my seemingly lifeless body. "Holy shit, Deku. Okay, we'll talk about this later. Let's get you back to my house." He picked up my bag and threw it over his shoulder before picking me up bridal style, wincing at the whimper that left my lips as my broken body shifted, and quickly began to walk me back to his house. He spared a shout that I couldn't make out to his mom before rushing me upstairs and carefully laying me on his bed. He rushed from the room and returned with what I assumed was an armful of medical supplies. His voice sounded muffled, and I could barely register the feeling of a cup against my lips. I drank a few eager gulps of water before I started coughing, tears spilling from my eyes at the feeling of my ribs shifting again. I drifted as Katsuki cleaned up my wounds and groaned as he tried to bandage my ribs. Even half unconscious and covered in pain, I could tell he had no clue what he was doing. Eventually, I heard the sound of the door opening and a gasp. I couldn't bring myself to attempt to open my swollen eyes and simply left myself in Katsuki's trustworthy hands. I came to a few hours later. I still couldn't open my eyes and could barely hear as the man apparently sitting next to me introduced himself as a doctor and friend of Mitsuki. I listened to the best of my ability as he told me about the extensive broken and bruisedness of my body and the bandaging over my nose, eyes, and ears that could be removed in a day or two. When he was finished talking, he gave me a speech about turning in the people responsible and talking to the authorities before he left the room. It was then that I noticed the hand in mine and turned to where I figured whoever was there would be. I was relieved when Katsuki's voice came through the bandages. "Deku, I'm sorry." Katsuki sounded exhausted and defeated, like he'd ran a race around the world only to come in second. I started before a coughing fit took hold of me. "Why?" I eventually choked out. "What do you mean, why? If I had walked you home or noticed whoever did this before I left, you wouldn't be hurt." "I mean, that guy said you'll have permanent eye damage, Deku." "No," I coughed again heavily, shaking my aching ribs. "On you, THM. Katsuki sighed dramatically. "Get some sleep, Deku. I'll be here when you wake up." "Inko," I reminded him. "She can suck my ass for all I care. Fuck that bitch. I'll explain to the others. You pass out." Deciding against fighting him on the subject, I nodded and took his fantastic advice. "Yamikumo," a voice questioned as I was slammed into awareness. Everything hurt. I could tell that some of my ribs were bruised or broken due to how it hurt to breathe and that my ankles weren't functioning anymore. I tried to move my head to face where the voice came from, but the instant I did, a tsunami of pain crashed over me and I cried out, "Fuck, don't move. You'll only make it worse, you idiot." The voice sounded frantic, but also concerningly muffled, and I immediately linked the bad language to Bakugo. I tried to open my eyes to see him, but something over them was blocking my vision. "What's covering my face? What happened?" Panic began to flood my voice and I reached up to try to feel what it was, but my arms ached too much for me to continue to push them. "Stop moving, fucker," Bakugo screeched, and his hand came out of mine to push my arm back down. Okay. Jeez, but seriously, what the fuck happened to Deku? Or was it Midoriya? Nah, hurts too much for it to have been Midoriya. For one, the injuries would have been less painful due to time, and you can't exactly be hurt this bad during lunch. Also, knowing Deku, he wouldn't sit still even if he wasn't the one to get beat up, so I wouldn't be in this bed. Or at least, I think this is a bed. Can't really tell due to the fact that I can't see, but I'm pretty good at identifying things without seeing them. Comes from only being awake at night. I ended my ramble with only a hint of embarrassment. I was too used to talking to myself, which didn't give me the best brain-to-mouth filter. "It was Deku," Bakugo explained, and I heard him get up and start to move things around. "I knew it. I'm a genius," I whispered to myself, but Bakugo heard that as well. "Sure you are," he responded and returned to the bed. Wow, the sarcasm is strong in this one. I laugh a little, but stop very quickly. "Fuck, I'll shut up now. I told you not to move, fucker. You say you're a genius, but apparently you're just an idiot who's too dumb to realize he should be in a shit ton of pain and should respect that and not aggravate it." "You know, I don't appreciate your tone," I replied. "I thought you said you were going to shut up," Bakugo yelled. "Oh, right. Well, how about while I'm in my moment of silence, you tell me what the hell is going on?" I responded, and then flinched a little when my wounds began to tell me, "Oh, you thought that location didn't hurt? Well, guess what, fucker, even talking will become painful for you as well." "I'm not really sure. I got this call from Deku, but when I answered it he only groaned and then didn't respond again, like the fucker he is. So I, a hero in the making, went to go and find him. He was like this when I got there, so took him home." My mom got a doctor who asked what happened, and he responded to him but not me, which is just rude. That little piece of shit, but all he said was they did it, which is fucking vague, but also probably means the swipes that are our classmates beat him up. Bakugo finished, and I let that sink in for a bit. Well, next time I'm awake I really am going to have to take a trip to my miracle healer, I commented, and Bakugo just grunted in reply. Taking that as a sign he wasn't going to be mad at me if I spoke again, I continued. So, you say you went to a doctor. What are my exact injuries? Bruised and broken ribs. Called it. Fucking destroyed ankles. It's going to take a fucking long time before you can walk on them again. Don't underestimate me and my spite. Bruised arms and legs, but nothing serious. That's going to be the least injured area, isn't it? And finally, severe damage to your eyes and ears, and also your entire upper face area. Oh, I replied to that statement in a softer tone. I knew the damage was going to be bad if my face was wrapped in a bandage, but the thought that it was that bad was a little overwhelming. Yup, and only Deku knows what happened, so we're in the fucking dark. Oh joy, such a lovely time. I flooded the words with sarcasm, and Bakugo scoffed a bit. A fucking great-ass time. He added on. Silence reigned for a little bit, and Bakugo, surprisingly, was the one to break it. I'm going to go get you some ice. Okay, I'll be here. Staring at nothing, I chirped back to him, and I had never heard someone leave the room faster. So, what you're fucking asking me to do is carry you like a bag of shit up onto this random-ass rooftop so your miracle healer can work their voodoo magic on you. Bakugo summed up what I had just told him, but included more curse words than I deemed necessary. Yes, I replied, and I smiled to where I believed my friend to be. Fuck no. Fuck yes, I countered. Come on, Bakugo. This is the best way for everyone to not feel like crap. And I trust my miracle healer with my life. They're a very nice person. What roof? Bakugo finally caved, and if I could I would have jumped with joy. Or at least done jazz hands. You know what? This is a terrible idea. I receded my good idea award as I painfully clung to Bakugo's back. I could feel him preparing to activate his quirk and blast both of us onto the roof. Too late to back out now. He, at least, seemed excited to use his quirk, and without any warning, began to blast us upwards. I'm a lot more used to falling off of roofs, not onto them. I screeched over the sound of the multiple explosions. Thankfully, the flight was over very quickly, and I almost sighed with relief as I felt Bakugo touch down and was able to release my sore muscles from their locked position around Bakugo. We're here, fucker. I noticed. I replied with a shit ton of sarcasm. So, I just leave and wait for you to call me to get you back down. Bakugo confirmed, and I nodded, and then flinched because damn, that hurt like hell. Bakugo grunted a goodbye and then leaped back off the roof. A few minutes later, a different pair of footsteps began to come to my position. Yamikumo, what have you done now? A voice sounded from besides me. Hey recovery girl, how are you? I tried to wave at her, but my abused arms revolted and began to shake when I lifted them, so I quickly abandoned ship. Better than you, I'm afraid, she replied. Recovery girl had met me a few months ago, after I saved her grandson, and has begun to heal me when I need it due to the fact that she likes me more alive than dead. Yeah, that makes sense. But, could you get to the healing part sooner than later? I'm in a lot of pain. I laughed a little to try to alleviate the situation, but that just made it worse as I flinched at the movement. I can see that. The herd recovery girl moved closer. Here you go. I felt her lips meet my skin, and while a wave of much-needed relief swept over me, so did the want to fall into a coma. Thank you. I smiled at her, and the movement didn't hurt that much at all. Meet me here tomorrow so I can heal the rest, she demanded. Of course, I replied as I sat up and began to unravel the bandages surrounding my face. Sadly, in the midst of doing that, I felt myself begin to freeze. Shit, why the fuck are my eyes covered in bandages? I soon realized that this was not the weirdest thing that I was going to have to deal with. I quickly took off the bandages and realized that my arm wasn't hurting. In fact, my ankles hurt a shit ton less, my face hurt more, and my ribs hurt about the same, but altogether it doesn't make any scientific sense. When the bandages are off, I look around and lo and behold, there's more crazy stuff I have to deal with. Not only are my eyes working significantly worse, I'm on a rooftop in the middle of nowhere. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? I now turn and see an old lady besides me. Who the fuck? She whacks me with her cane. That is no way to speak to someone who just healed you, young man. I stare blankly at her, not even feeling her hit. I've been through worse, and then asked the next question on my mind. How the fuck am I supposed to get down from here? She just threw her hands up in the air and replied, I don't know, probably the same way you got up. If an old lady could do it, I'm sure you can too. Which also reminds me that, 1, I don't know where I am, and 2, I don't know who she is. So I should probably stop talking to her before she decides to disembowel me, if that's her kind of thing. I'm still thinking as she hobbles her way off the rooftop and into a car. Sighing and cursing the altars, I mosey on over to the side of the roof and kinda look down. Oh, hi Bakugo. I wave cheekily and he scowls but blasts his way up to me. Fancy seeing you here. How am I? Oh, I'm starving off 3 panic attacks at once, so if you'd like to tell me what the fuck is going on, I'd appreciate it. By the end of my rant, Bakugo had landed on the roof. Not even waiting for him to reply to me, I koala at him so he could get me off this goddamn roof and hopefully home. He also didn't feel the need to answer my questions, instead walking straight over the edge and giving us a graceful descent. Get the fuck off of me, Akatani, was all the warning I had before I was dumped to the ground. God fucking damn it, my ribs hurt. And my face. Jesus Christ, what happened? I relayed my train of thought to Bakugo and he sighed. Let's get walking and then I'll tell you. So we started off, me having to pause every now and then to be able to breathe. They did a number on my ribs. So, basically, it was bullies. Again, worse than usual this time. Fucked up your eyes by stepping on them, it looks like, but maybe Yamikumo's miracle healer fixed that. And, yeah, that's about it. Oh, so that old lady was one of Yamikumo's contacts. Everything's blurry. But I don't know what it was like before, so maybe it's better now. A thought occurred to me and I almost cried. If my eyes are always going to be fucked up now, what am I supposed to do about my art? I entered a contest. And I'm really excited about that. I can't do art if I can't fucking see. What the fuck am I supposed to do? Art is the only thing I have going for me. It's my thing. If I can't paint or make stuff, then Bakugo, bless his soul, he maybe has, stopped me from spurling. Dumbass, there's a thing called glasses, you know. Oh yeah, so don't worry about it. Plus, if you're nearsighted, then you can see things close to you perfectly fine and can paint or any other dumb shit you want to without any trouble. Just pester your mom until she takes you to an eye doctor and you'll be fine. Oh yeah, that's nice to know. Plus Inko likes me the most, so I probably have a good chance to get her to listen. It wasn't that Inko knew of the altars, she just knew that sometimes I acted differently during the day and I don't talk back to her in the morning. Also, she's sometimes a little bit reasonable after she's had some sleep, so it's a win-win. I quickly got myself under control and gave him a little smile. Sorry, Bakugo, it's just been a long not day. The name immediately got him scowling at me. I know all you shitheads need to call me different things, but what the fuck did you decide on, Bakugo? Laughing, I answered, oh, I'm sorry, Bakugo. Would you rather I call you that one slut instead? He just cuffed me on the shoulder and kept walking. Actually, can you bring me to the nearest cat cafe instead? It's for my art. He gave me a look and pointed to my eyes. Yeah. That's why I have my. I quickly searched Yamikumo's pockets until I felt a rectangle-like shape phone. I quickly pulled it out. Or, rather, Yamikumo's phone, but I'm sure he won't mind. I'll just send myself the pictures later. Bakugo gave me a look but switched directions. You better not call me for help getting back to your house, dumbass. We got to the cafe relatively quickly, and, after putting the ski mask and outer jacket somewhere safe, I bid Bakugo adieu and went inside. It was a quiet place with, thankfully, few people, and a lot of cats. In the cafe there were 3 black cats, all of various degrees of fluffiness. I kept my phone out at all times, taking pictures of them from every angle. I didn't bother looking through what I took. More likely than not, I wouldn't be able to tell if they were any good anyway. One of the cats was lying in a shaded part of the room. The lack of contrast perfect for my needs. I quietly snuck up on him, my phone ready to get the photo as soon as it could. The moment I took it, the cat woke up and I bumped into something. My ribs screamed at me, and I had to crouch down for a couple seconds before I could breathe again. I hope you got that picture. I looked up to see a kid, vaguely my age, and looking pretty close to death, staring at me. Oh shit, did I bump into him? I think I did. Sorry about that, I didn't see you. The kid had purple hair, but other than that not many defining features. My name's Akatani, and yours. A stranger once told me I shouldn't give my name out that easily, but it's not as if I legally exist. He seemed to debate responding, but eventually said, Shinso, any particular reason you needed that photo so badly? Sheepishly, I rubbed the back of my head. Shit, not a good idea, and replied, I need a reference photo for a painting and it had the perfect lighting. Shinso tilted his head like a cat once I said painting. Your painting better be worth running me over. I can send it to you once I'm done if you want to give me your number. Why did I do that? Well, I suppose if he turns out to be a serial killer, I'll just get Yamikumo to kill him. Shinso seemed as surprised at the reply as I was, but took my phone anyway, putting his number in. I'll have to remember to put that in my phone along with all the pictures, and then delete it. Once he handed it back, he asked, So, you want to be an artist? It's not like I have many other options. Yeah, I guess. Most people want to be heroes nowadays. I shrugged. Then he seemed to remember something and came a little closer. Are you okay? I remember seeing you hunch over in pain when you hit me. And I know vague first aid. And have some pain relievers. For migraines, he hurried to add. I waved off his concerns. It's fine. I can wrap my ribs at home. He did not look any less concerned. I really need to learn social cues. So, I know what I'm doing here, but what are you? I'm starting to think blank stares are his go-to thing. Insomnia. He pauses for a moment. Honestly, I have no idea why I'm talking to you. If my father knew I gave a stranger my last name and phone number, he'd have my head. Yeah, that's valid. If it makes you feel any better, I'm just a depressed artist, not a serial killer. Shinso looks me up and down, reminding me of all the bruises he can probably now see. Yeah, I feel pretty safe. Scowling, I looked at the time and realized that, since I have no idea when Inko's gonna be awake, I should probably be going. Also, I don't legally exist, so technically you can't get in trouble for talking to me. Laughing at the boy's dumbfounded expression, I put my phone back into my pocket and walked out of the cafe, thanking the employees as I went. Yamikumo's jacket was the exact place I left it, and, ribs screaming in pain, I put it on and tried to figure out where I was in relation to my house. Well, it doesn't matter whether or not I recognize this place because everything is so fucking blurry it doesn't matter. Time to go to the GPS. 3 hours later, I carefully approached Inko to ask her about glasses. Hey mom, I accidentally got in the middle of a villain attack after school. She turned to me in surprise, but not necessarily concerned. Okay, I can work with this. There was a gas, and now everything's blurry. I wasn't going to tell you because I thought it would figure itself out, but it didn't, and I think I might need glasses. But I almost yell when she starts to walk away. I didn't forget about it. It was a stressful situation, but I stopped my quirk from activating. Aren't you proud? Her personality did a full 180 and she started smiling at me. Oh, that's wonderful, baby. I am proud of you. I bet I can get you an eye doctor appointment today. Sounds good. I gave her a thumbs up and quickly locked myself in my room, writing a note to Izuku to warn him about the appointment. It would take away all of my hard work if he looked to have forgotten it. Guess I'll have to save my painting until I can actually see. I had just come from my eye appointment and was sent home successful. Sadly, I could only convince Mom into buying one pair of glasses and a set of contacts. I decided Yamikumo would like the glasses the most. It would fit in his aesthetic, so I decided to save them for him, and the contacts for me and probably Deku because he wouldn't have the time to change after school. Yamikumo, on the other hand, will want to make his own, so I'll just have to leave him a note about it and what our prescriptions are. By the time the appointment had ended, school was already mostly over. But I convinced Mom to let me walk to the building anyway so I could wait for Bakugo to leave. I was already halfway there when I went under a bridge and everything changed. Oh, look, a perfect bodysuit. A creepy voice echoed from behind me and I slowly turned around. Not really wanting to see whatever the voice came from, but knowing that I should. Okay, definitely should have just run away. The first thing I noticed was the fact it was made up of a sewage-looking material, and then that it also looked like it wanted to kill me. I whipped back around and began to sprint away from whatever that was. However, I couldn't make it far before a tendril of the gunk wrapped around my leg. No way am I letting you go. The villain cackled from behind me and I lost my balance as he suddenly pulled me towards him. Stop, let me go. Help, help. I began to scream. The villain did not like this and started to pull me towards him faster. Shut up and die. Brown gunk shoved its way down my throat and nose and I immediately felt the loss of my air. This is how I'm going to die. I pulled frantically at the liquid, but nothing I did would make it leave. My fingernails slashing, though it didn't seem to faze the monster in the least. Soon enough, my vision began to darken and I felt myself slip away from reality. I really am going to die. Sorry guys. Detroit smash. A loud voice broke through my haze and soon afterwards I was being flung out of the villain's grasp and painfully skidded along the concrete. Are you alright, young man? Wait, that voice is familiar. All Might. All Might. I sat up in a flash and saw that it was indeed All Might who had saved me from the sludge villain. Yes, it is I, All Might. I apologize for letting you get attacked by that foul creature. I will be more careful next time. My idol finished his speech by grabbing up handfuls of the villain and shoving him into soda bottles. It's okay, All Might. But, I do have a question for you. I brushed the dirt off my legs and shakily stood up. Time to put the nothing phases me anymore mentality to the test. I'm sorry, I love answering my fans' questions, but I'm afraid I don't have the time today. All Might replied, but I wasn't ready to let it go. I swear, it'll be quick. I do apologize, but I really have to go. The hero replied and moved to shoot off into the sky. No, I can't let him do that. Without thinking, I grabbed onto his leg and went with him. My boy, let go. All Might tried to push me off, but, if anything, that just made my hold on tighter. If I do, I'll die. I screamed back at him and the hands moved to try to keep holding me on instead of trying to push me off. In a few seconds, both of us landed on an unknown rooftop. I let go of the death grip I had on my idol and sank into the floor. Now, I love fans, but this was a bit too much. All Might commented and I decided not to acknowledge it. You're the one that tried to push me off however many feet up in the air, man. Okay, now it's the moment with truth. Can someone be a hero with a useless quirk? I asked, and All Might's expression turned sad, and the number one hero began to speak. But in that instance he exploded into a mess of smoke. All Might, I screeched, but didn't move to help him. Who knew what villain could be doing this? Soon, the smoke began to clear and a thin man was shown. He was gaunt and pale, and looked more like a stick than I think actually sticks do. Whoever this was coughed a few times, and some blood sprouted from his mouth. "You're not All Might," I screamed louder this time, and the imposter flinched a little. "Yes, I am, calm down." The imposter tried to deny my claims and began to wave the smoke away. "A few years ago I was attacked by a villain who gave me this scar." He pulled up his shirt to show a gruesome injury. Because of it, I was limited to that form for only a few hours. Now, you must understand, this information cannot get leaked, so I'm placing my trust in you. Of course, I won't tell a soul. I immediately agreed to his conditions. And with that out of the way, I remembered what I had come for in the first place. "So, can I become a hero? What's your name, boy? And what's the quirk?" "Midoriya Izuku, sir, and memory loss." I hate having to phrase it like that. It's unfair to me and to everyone else. All Might sighed when he heard my answer. "I'm sorry, Midoriya, but it's just not possible with that quirk." "I'm sorry." With that, my idol turned away from me and opened the door to the stairs. With one glance back, All Might disappeared into the building. Not possible. Huh, I should have known. It's so bad of a quirk he didn't even ask for an explanation of it. I muttered to myself and stared off into the horizon. Thankfully, my contemplation was cut short when explosions sounded from a near alleyway. Explosions. Kachin. I rushed down the stairs that All Might had just left through and ran through the streets leading to where I heard the explosion. In a few seconds, I had reached it and saw exactly what I feared. Oh no, the slime villain must have escaped when All Might jumped. Fuck, what do I do? Without my permission, my legs moved and soon I was running to where my friend was. Heroes shouted at me to stop, but I ignored them. I sensed an opportunity and grabbed a rock from where it was sitting on the ground. I then chucked the rock and it hit the villain in the eye. "Kachin, try to get out now." I began to pull at my friend and he struggled to help me. Sadly, it wasn't going anywhere and I was about to start really freaking out when I heard a familiar booming laugh behind me. "Never fear, All Might, because I am here." The number one hero pulled back his fist and sent the villain flying backwards. Almost immediately, heroes and press began to swarm him and Kachin pulled me away from where they were collected. "You should go, before a hero decides to get mad at you for that stunt you pulled. We'll talk later," he muttered into my ear and I nodded before slipping out of the alleyway. I was a block away from my house when a blur landed in front of me and I fell down on the ground in surprise. "Young Midoriya, it is I, All Might." The larger-than-life hero greeted me and I debated pinching myself to see if this was real. He then proved it for me as he untransformed in a burst of smoke. All Might, sir, what are you doing here?" I asked, but didn't move from my position on the ground. "I have come to give you an offer. You, Midoriya Izuku, can become a hero, and I will give you my quirk to help you get there," All Might announced, and I almost fainted at what he said. Really no introduction. "Wait, quirk. Do not fear. I will answer all your questions later, but for now I must go. Meet me at Dagaba Beach tomorrow at 6. Okay. I replied, too shell-shocked to make full sentences. Once I replied, All Might transformed and jumped back into the sky. What was that? Shit, I have to write to Mikumo about this. He's not going to be happy. I woke up on the ground. Not unusual but still disappointing. I quickly scanned the area recognizing the block. I was almost home. Did I fall over when I switched or something? Izuku's usually more careful than that. Since we get a couple seconds of warning, usually the alters sit down or prop themselves up to make sure we don't get any injuries from falling in the switch. It was then that I noticed the phone in my hand, Izuku's to be precise. Dagaba Beach. Why on earth would we want to be there? I mumbled to myself as I hit send on the text and pocketed the phone. It was only once I stood that I took note of my healed body. Damn, Yami knows his people. I'm glad though, those kids went way too far yesterday. Like I get it, I'm a waste of air, but do you have to rub it in? More like kick it in. I heard a snicker behind me and turned to find a very smelly Katsuki. A stark contrast to his usual sweet, caramel smell. God Katsuki, what happened to you? I quickly moved to hover over him, checking him for injuries and spinning him around in my hold. Whoa Deku, calm down. I'm fine you dork. Some fucking sewage villain attacked me, tried to take over my body, no big deal. Katsuki grabbed my hands to stop me from spinning him. That doesn't sound like no big deal. Are you okay? What asshole hurt you? Who do you need me to kill? I asked sincerely. He let out a loud laugh. That's the first time I've heard you curse in forever, D. But seriously, I'm fine you sap. No need to get all emotions and murder on me. He ruffled my hair and grabbed my hand before leading me back toward my house, making me run to catch up. I didn't even notice I'd laid my head on his shoulder until I heard a content hum from above me. I looked up at him, catching his dazzling red eyes with my own. I'm sorry, did you just call me dazzling? Shit, I was mumbling. That should be illegal. I'm not fucking dazzling. Shining maybe, sparkling sure if you want it to be a quirk thing, but dazzling. You can do better, dumbass. I was just, I tried to say, blushing violently. He let out a loud cackle and bumped his hip against mine. If I'm dazzling, then you're enchanting. Perfect. Those will be our hero names, you know, Mr. Dazzling and his dumbass wife, Mrs. Enchanting. Legendary. He waved his free hand around like he was giving a huge presentation. I chuckled to myself at his awfully hidden display of emotion, but I couldn't stop my mind from turning grim at the idea of hero names. I settled for quickly changing the subject. So tell me about this epic villain battle you had. We had already passed my house, but neither of us cared, content to simply be within each other's presence. I smiled as he recalled the fight, definitely exaggerating Izuku's part in everything, and leaned back into his shoulder as I listened. Eventually, we made our way to a park where we found a large cherry blossom tree and carefully climbed to perch on one of its branches. I smiled as he finished the story and clapped for him, earning one of his patented knee-weakening grins. After another few minutes of chatting, we were interrupted by Katsuki's phone going off. "Aw shoot, my mom needs me, I've gotta go." He hopped down and waved back at me as he left. "Bye Deku, bye Katsuki." I waved at him but dropped my smile with a sigh once he turned around. Pulling out my own phone, I noticed a text from Inko. "Get back here, baby. You need to tell me if the contacts work." "Contacts? Baby, what the?" I mumbled to myself. It was then that I noticed the awkward feeling over my eyes. "So I need glasses now, that's cool I guess. I should let the other know probably." I sent off the text and sighed before jumping down and starting toward my inevitable doom. Of course it wouldn't be that easy though, because I just had to pass by one of my main tormentors on the way back, who was holding a sharp stick and had already seen me. Great. At that point I was already physically worn out from Izuku's villain fiasco, not to mention walking toward my death with Inko's ominous text. To say I wasn't in the mood is the least of it. Check it out. Is that a little Deku I see? I just thought of a fun game. How hard will I need to poke you with this thing until I actually stab you? The taller boy cackled as he stalked towards me. Usually I would have run off, but I was getting really tired of their shit. I stood with my head bowed as he approached, trying to make myself seem as innocent as possible as to not get the worst of it. Maybe if he did stab me, then Inko would go easy on me or something. I couldn't stop myself when the sharp branch came into sight from grabbing it out of his hands. In a blind rage, I tossed it in my hand and stabbed the sharper side into the boy's eye. He screamed in agony as I grabbed his hair, digging the stick into his skull. I felt blood splatter onto my arm and face, smiling a little at the warm feeling. After a couple torturous seconds, he dropped to the ground, dead or passed out, I wasn't sure. I stepped back, marveling at the bright crimson that dotted my arm and mostly covered my hand. I reached up to touch my wet face as well, though I wasn't sure if the blood was new or if it had already been on my hand. I grabbed the stick from out of his head and gave it a twirl before walking the rest of the block and entering my house. "Ah, there you are, Izuku. How are you feel?" Inko trailed off from her disturbingly happy speech at the sight of my blood-covered body. Go shower." I smiled at her and hummed in agreement before turning to the bathroom. When I got out, she was still standing there, a creepy and unnatural smile on her face. "Since you were so good this morning, why don't we have a movie night? I'll start an all-night documentary for you." I gaped at her as she turned and sat on the couch. Now who's the one with the memory issue? Jeez. I carefully sat down as far from her as I could, shuddering at the feeling of her hand ghosting my back from its spot on the back of the couch. It made me want to crawl out of my skin, or throw up, or both. After around half an hour, Inko dozed off. Not wanting to risk waking her, I settled for giving into my exhaustion. Finally waking up without injuries. What a glorious and rare occasion. When I wake up, I immediately take in my physical situation before looking at where I am. It might not be the smartest thing to do, but it worked for me. So, after realizing I wasn't about to die in the next few seconds, I began to take in my surroundings. Mom was lying on the couch next to me with a small smile on her face. In front of me, the TV was on and some all-night documentary credits were rolling. I then noticed I had my phone near me with a silent text notification lighting up the screen. Wonder what that's about," I muttered, but quickly shut up when the woman next to me began to stir. I silently got up from my seat, grabbed my phone, and made my way to my room. Once inside, I opened up the text and began to read. "Oh, so that's what's in my eye." At the beginning, I just thought my eyes were dry from staring at a TV, but knowing I had contacts in this whole time made a lot more sense. Well, that means I could either wear these contacts in my vigilante costume, or I could make some epic opus glasses for myself. Now that I say it out loud, it doesn't seem like that much of a hard choice. I'd have to make them one-sided glass, which would add an issue, but also mean that Eraserhead can't make me fall off a roof again, so that's a plus. I kept talking to myself even as I moved through all of the secret hideouts in my room, trying to find where I hid the materials that I might be able to use to make the glasses. I looked for around half an hour, but no matter what rock I turned over, I didn't have enough materials to make what I needed. I didn't even have any glass. Okay, if I remember correctly, there was this warehouse nearby that has some of the stuff I need, probably. And if it doesn't, I'll just go by the beach. I put on my vigilante costume, and I didn't bother to take out the contacts I was wearing. Once all that was done, I had around 4 hours left of my 5 hours. Ugh, I really shouldn't have made my costume so hard to put on, I muttered while I climbed out the window. I mean, yeah, the design makes it almost impossible to take off if you don't know what you're doing, but it's just such a hassle. I quickly scaled the side of the apartment building and took off running when I got onto the roof. Soon I had created enough momentum to leap across the roof and onto the next one. Even though the leap was a big one, I didn't even slow down when I landed on the other side. I couldn't afford to, though I'd had enough practice falling off roofs to probably not get hurt when I hit the ground. It was a 25-minute hard sprint to get to the warehouse I was looking for. It used to be somewhere where a support company could store their materials, but recently the company went bankrupt and a group of villains took over the warehouse. So, I didn't really feel that bad about stealing from them. I sprinted onto the roof of the house and leaned off of it to see if there were any windows I could enter through. Thankfully, there was an outcropping next to a window only a few feet away from me. "Please don't lock your windows. Please don't lock your windows," I said under my breath as I made my way over to the outcropping. I dropped down onto it silently. Or as silently as one can when they fall onto something. I kneeled down in front of the window and pushed at it to see if it would open. Sadly, it didn't. Stupid villain with their smartass, we should lock the windows to make sure no one can steal anything. I mean, it won't stop me from stealing anything, but it's annoying as fuck. I pulled out a support item I made to deal with situations like this and stuck it to the window. In a few seconds the machine stopped and I pushed the window open. I crawled down the wall and began to make my way through the large expanse of support materials. Where is the glass? Where is the glass? Who knows? Certainly not me. I laughed at my own sarcasm and kept on looking through the boxes surrounding me. Wait, could it be? I dug around through a box and noticed that the bottom was full of pairs of glasses. Holy shit. With these I don't have to do any work, I exclaimed and grabbed a handful. Tomorrow, I can mess around with them to make sure they work with the costume and make sure they're up to my standards. This is perfect. I filled my extra pockets with a bunch of random shit from other boxes that I thought was interesting, and then left the way I came. I ran across rooftops with around 1.5 hours left till my time was up. However, I knew that when I got home I wouldn't have enough time to start making the glasses, so my best bet would be to just hide them so none of my alters could steal them. And when I got home I did exactly that. You know what? I haven't slept in around 5 years, might as well try it. I say to no one and change into pajamas. I had no idea why we even owned them, but hey, they were useful for times like this. Good night. I spoke into the silence of my room, and I quickly fell asleep. Still blurry, I guess, but I'm not in a shit ton of pain, so I'll take what I can get. At that moment I noticed the glasses sitting on my desk. So my gamble worked out. Hell yeah. Picking them up I gave them a once-over and put them on. Immediately the world became crisp. Alright, now I can start painting. Today it was my turn to open up my secret compartment. My closet had 3 sections, one open, one where we put our shirts, one behind a box where I keep my art supplies, and one behind a little cabinet where I keep my final products. Those range from little statues to full-blown paintings which I try to sell online. I've actually gotten a decent amount of them sold and made a chunk of change. That money I keep for myself. I also do commissions to help Yamikumo pay for any stuff he needs to make things. All in all, I'm the breadwinner of the altars. The box is easily moved, and I take out a decent-sized canvas, my palette, a big brush, my easel, an apron, and some white paint. I quickly tied on the apron so when I started to paint nothing would get on me. After I set up my easel it was time to start painting. The first part was easy. Although the canvas I had was white, I decided to give the entire thing a coat of white paint anyway. The outside of the eye would be white and I wanted it to have the same texture as everything else. Putting some white paint on my palette I picked up the brush and started, from left to right, painting my canvas white. As I let it dry I decided to look at my phone and see if I had any texts. Not that I had anyone's number besides Shinso's and the altars. Go to Dagaba Beach at 6. That doesn't make any sense. But they don't tell me to do something if they don't have a reason, so I guess I have a field trip. Isn't that the trash beach though? I sighed, but put an alarm on my phone to remind me when it was time to go. Next it was time to do an outline of my painting. I wasn't quite comfortable painting this cat and Ida just freehanded. And since it was being entered into a competition it was better safe than sorry. I did a quick sketch of where the iris and the cat should be and, of course, something's not right. The circle's not fully circular and the cat doesn't look proportional. I eventually figured out how to do the outline of the iris, or rather, I found 2 circular objects in my room that were the right size, but the cat took me most of the night. I had a photo on my phone of a black cat doing basically the exact thing I was going to paint, but I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to try and figure out a cat's dimensions when all of its fur was black. Now imagine how hard it's going to be to paint it. Well, I have always been a go big or go home person. I soon gave up and went to the internet to find the same pose but different fur color. Putting the outline onto my canvas only took about 30 minutes. And once I was done, I had a pencil sketch of 2 circles and a cat stepping over them from the middle. If the pupil is black and the cat is also black, I could probably do something cool like fade them together so it looks like the cat comes out of nothing, or something like that. Then I don't have to worry so much about the back of the cat. Checking the time, I realized it was 5 in the morning. I should probably get out of my pajamas then and get ready for whatever hell is waiting for me at the beach. I decided on a simple graphic tee and some sweatpants. I wasn't going to get dressed up for the trash beach. I slid open my door at the exact speed it wouldn't make any noise at. Years of experience let me do that, as well as memorize the floorboards that don't creak. One night I went through the entire house and painted those boards just a little different so Inko didn't notice. But if any of us needed to get somewhere in the house, we could easily find a route. Every now and then one of them betrays us and I have to change the paint, but so far it's been a foolproof method. Stepping on the slightly more yellowish boards, I made my way into the kitchen and raided the cabinets for breakfast foods. I decided on an energy bar, apple, and yogurt. I feel like a robber, I thought to myself as I snuck back into my room and started to eat. The next 30 minutes was a mixture between eating and reading and changing little things on my painting before it was time to go. I snuck out of the house and jogged to the beach, keeping my head down so no classmates of mine could notice me. I got there a little bit early, so I decided to sit on a bench and think. Suddenly a hand clapped down on my shoulder. What the fuck? I whip around with reflexes I didn't know I had and settle into is this a fighting stance? Why do I know this? A gaunt man stood by the bench I was previously sitting on with his hand in the air, a universal sign of surrender. There is no need to be alarmed, young Midoriya. This was not in the text. How does he know who I am? He smiled widely, a little creepily if I was being honest, and waved me over towards him. It's time to start your training. You have a great spirit, but, physically, you are not the perfect vessel for my quirk. I blinked again. It still didn't make any sense, so I just let him continue. So, you will be using your 10 months before the entrance exam to clean this beach. I schooled my face into a neutral expression. Realized I was supposed to be Izuku, and dug deep inside myself where my enthusiasm lives. Really, this whole beach, that's going to take, well, a long time. I smiled widely and started fidgeting. He laughed, deep and booming, of course it will. But I promise you it will be worth it. Go beyond. Holy fucking shit, why don't I know the ending to this? It's literally All Might's slogan. I have to have listened to it somewhere. Oh right, plus ultra. And then it was hell. Pure unfiltered hell. I am an artist, I don't do exercise. That's Yamikumo's thing. Creepy smile man seemed to be impressed by my strength. Probably because the baggy clothing Izuku wears doesn't show the lithe muscles needed for vigilante activities and running away from bullies. Or maybe it was because he couldn't lift a twig bigger than those scrawny arms of his. The last thing I remember thinking was, of course Izuku found a weird-ass stranger to put me through hell of, apparently, a quirk. He better have fact-checked this dude before agreeing, or else I'm going to commit a 3-way murder-suicide. Young Midoriya, are you all right? A booming voice questioned next to me, and it took all of my self-restraint not to leap away from it. Yes, of course. Why do you ask? I turned around and smiled when I noticed the person asking was All Might, but in the smaller form. Nice, Mikumo must have been helping out. Did I tell him what was going on, or did I just tell him to be here? Whoops, you stopped moving for a bit and just stared off into the distance. Is that normal for you? He asked. Kinda. That usually happens when my memory is fritzy. Speaking of that, what was I just doing? I replied and looked down to see a microwave in my hands. I see. Well, you were beginning to clean this beach, All Might announced, and I swore for a second my brain stopped. All of it? I questioned and stared at the insane amount of trash littering the area. Yes, my boy. All of it. You have 10 months till the entrance exam, so that means you have then months to complete this. He answered all of my questions, even the unasked ones. By the way, how often do you think you are going to lose time? I shrug. Then we shall start quirk training. You can't be a hero if you forget who you're fighting in the middle of the fight. Well, that's true enough. I'm definitely going to need to have a tight leash on my hero hours, or else it's going to get confusing for everyone involved. So, where should I put this? I would have gestured to the microwave, but then I would have dropped it. Right over there. All Might pointed to a truck near a small pile of trash. Is that a refrigerator? Oh, Mikumo is going to kill me for making them do this. I made my way over to the mini trash pile and almost threw the microwave on the ground. That thing was super heavy, but probably light compared to everything else I'm going to have to move. I eventually started to zone out, allowing me to tune everything out as I went over to stuff, picked it up, and moved it. I learned how to do it during school since I already know everything, so when I zone out I can complete work without having to listen. All Might would come over every now and then, either to sit on something I had to be moving, or give some constructive criticism on my form and how not to pick things up with my back. When he thought I wasn't looking, he gazed at me with almost concern, probably because I just forgot about 2 hours of time, or at least that's what it looks like. And now we're going to start quirk training, but I can't control my quirk. Memory does not pass on from one alter to the next. That's just how it is. Nothing can change that. I bet when he figured that out, that I'll continue to lose a shit ton of time, he'll decide to make someone else's successor. You look down, my boy. All Might was suddenly behind me and I gave a little shriek. What could you possibly be thinking about? Well, there's a lot of trash, All Might sir, and I don't know whether or not I'll be able to finish it all. Although that was not the truth, it wasn't a lie either. Don't worry, young Midoriya. I have faith in your abilities. I gave you enough time to clean it if you had no muscle mass at all, so you're already ahead. All Might boomed and transformed into his hero form. However, it is almost lunchtime, but before you go I wanted to ask you a few questions about your quirk. He must have seen something in my facial expression because he elaborated. Nothing bad, of course, just informative. Yeah, go ahead. His questions mostly were around what time I was more likely for my memory to fritz out and if there were any causes and what quirk training I had already done. Well, sir, my quirk is very confusing. It used to be entirely random, but I worked on it for a long time and was able to get the fritzing at specific times. See, my brain has some weird thing that means it's necessary for it to shut down one of its functions every once in a while. If not memory, then something else, although that has not happened yet. So I was eventually able to train my brain to delete my memory at around 8 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, 10 at night, and 3 in the morning. Very random, I know, but it makes my life a little easier. Kaken and I had worked hours upon hours trying to come up with this explanation whenever someone tried to figure out how I could train it or was just curious. The stranger the quirk, the more people wanted to figure it out, so this had come in handy multiple times. Of course, it was entirely bullshit, but the only person who didn't believe it was my mother. It's not always permanent memory loss either. I usually get back the memories after a little while so it doesn't impact me that much. I see. I'm glad your quirk specialist was able to figure that out and that you were able to set specific times. Oh yeah, it's entirely scientific. My quirk specialist definitely doesn't have absolutely no idea what my quirk is and why it does what it does. Alright, well I think that's all I need to know for now. Now, go home and eat. I will be making a schedule based on the new information I have, so when you come here tomorrow you will be able to manage your time better to make sure you improve. A schedule made by All Might just for me. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. With that I was on my way home and very ready for a hot meal. When I focused into reality, the first thing I felt was my hand, or more specific, the sauce all over it. Gross, Izuku, you're supposed to make sure we don't fall into our food if we switch while eating, you know this shit. I grabbed the dirty plate and chopsticks and dumped them in the sink before washing my hand extensively to rid myself of the sticky feeling. Feels a little like the blood from yesterday. Nope, not going there. Wiping my hand on a towel, I reached into my pocket and grabbed my phone. Checking my texts quickly to ensure I didn't have any, I moved to open my contact for Katsuki. Bitches and bastards. Cinnamon bitch, hey cats lesser than 3. Spicy bastard, hey dork floofs. Cinnamon bitch, PFF lol. Cinnamon bitch, what are you up to? Spicy bastard. If you're trying to get me to say some corny shit like thinking about you ooh lesser than 3, then you can fuck off to some sim. Cinnamon bitch, all you are thinking about me. You're so sweet, Katsuki. Spicy bastard. It's almost sad that you're not being sarcastic. Cinnamon bitch, oh don't be like that lesser than 3, wanna get ice cream? Spicy bastard. Spicy bastard. Spicy bastard. Fine. I chuckled at my phone, pretending not to notice the blush on my cheeks, and walked to the door. It wasn't even 5 minutes before the doorbell rang. I opened it to see a slightly pink and caramel smelling Katsuki. All good, his sweet smell is back. Cats, did you run all the way here? I leaned up to get in his face as he sputtered. Of course not. I'm just a fast fucking walker. Get over yourself, dork. He shoved his hand in my face to get me to back up. His hand smelled like candy though. I couldn't stop myself from giving his palm a kitten lick. Katsuki's other hand exploded next to him. Stupid Deku, what was that for? I giggled and grabbed his hand in my own, leaning into his side. Fucking dork. Don't lick me, got that? I smiled up at him and hummed a little. His face managed to get even redder shockingly. Kinda like the blow nope. Stop that. I coughed into my hand and turned to face where we were going. So, shall we? I got a grunt in response and began to sway our hands lightly as we started walking. I take it your mom's out? Katsuki asked from above me. I didn't bother looking up, just nodded. You. Good. I turned to face him and forced an Izuku-worthy smile onto my face. Course, sorry, got lost in thought is all. I semi-lied. We walked in comfortable silence until we reached the shop. We stopped to look at the options before placing our orders. Mint chocolate chip cup for me and a cinnamon bun-flavored cone for Katsuki. Grabbing our ice creams, we sat down at one of the small booths in the corner of the shop. So what are Izuku and Mikumo up to? I asked as I stole a spoonful of ice cream off of Katsuki's melting cone. He turned it to look at the dripping side and scrambled to save it. I giggled at his antics and sighed happily. Not much, I guess. I know they're up to something, but Izuku didn't mention what. There's an assembly at school tomorrow, though. Rumor is that one of the assholes in our grade got stabbed in the face and left in the middle of the road. He's in the hospital in a coma or something, he said offhandedly. I blinked in recognition before looking off and humming awkwardly. Anyway, I said, trying to change the topic. How's UA prep going? He gave me a look. I never talked about heroes. It's good, yeah. Why? Oh, nothing, just asking is all. I waved him off. I checked my phone to see that Inko would be home in only half an hour. I've really got to go if I want to make Inko's lunch before she leaves. Sorry, cats. No, it's fine. I'll walk with you. We stood and threw out our garbage before making our way back, chatting lightly as we went. We parted ways at our usual spot and I walked into the house to prepare her food. The evening went pretty normally. Eventually she came into my room and started screaming for no reason. She ended up throwing a vase at my head, so that was fun. After cleaning up the remains, I laid down on my bed and sighed as my achy body settled into the covers, waiting for the tightness in my back to settle. I must have fallen asleep without realizing, because halfway through a dream about goats and sushi costumes I faded out. Why is it that every time I wake up I end up in pain? I regret everything. I muttered to no one and turned so that I was sitting on the bed with my legs thrown over the side. Deku really needs to learn to fight back. He should have my muscle memory from fighting as a vigilante, so I'm not really sure why he doesn't. I decided that I wasn't in enough pain to not go out and fight some crime tonight, so I quickly grabbed my vigilante costume out of the secret place I store it. It took around 15 minutes to get it on and make sure that I wasn't missing anything. That's when I remembered that my goggles. I forgot to make them. I hurried to grab the glass and plastic that I was going to use to put them together and pulled out my crafting supplies. Thankfully, the glass was especially made to change to fit the prescription of the person looking through it, and it was also a one-way mirror, which is great, because if it wasn't, then if I ever run into a racerhead again I would be in trouble. But I doubt that would happen. I had been successfully avoiding him for 3 years. With a bit of smelting and cutting the glass, I had the first version of my glasses. I quickly exchanged my contacts that I had on for them and was happy to see that they worked. The plastic obscured the outside of my vision a little bit, but that would be something I would have to fix another day. After missing yesterday to get healed, I was behind my preferred quota for bringing down crime. Silently, I grabbed the bottom of my now open window and threw myself out of it while still holding on. Once I had a few footholds on the building, I began to scale the wall up to the roof. Running across roofs was my favorite way to get to where I needed to go because it improved my stamina and strength in ways normal running wouldn't. Plus, I didn't have the materials to make a really cool motorcycle. I caught my breath for a bit once I got to the top and began to plan where I needed to go. So, damn it, what day of the week is? Oh well, I'll just go south. I haven't been down there in a while. I spun on my heel and sprinted. The first fly off the roof made me smile as I soared through the air. I landed lightly on the next building and kept the speed and the smile. Let go of me. I don't want this. I heard a woman scream from the alley next to me. I had been patrolling the area around here, but got tired after I took down a few fights, so I decided to take a break next to a notoriously bad bar. I did that intentionally, because even though I was tired, parking outside this bar should allow me to rest, and also I would be ready to stop the inevitable fight that broke out in or around it. Come on, I know you don't mean that. Soon you'll be begging me, don't worry. Fuck, a rapist. Those fucking pieces of shit, I hate people like that. No means no fucker. As quietly as I could, I stepped towards the edge of my roof and peered down into the alley. Sure enough, a guy was backing a woman into the wall, holding her wrists so she couldn't hit him. I grimaced and prepared to jump off the roof. It was only a 2-story building, so I wasn't too worried about being hurt. In a flash, I was off the roof and rolling towards the attacker. While still on the ground, I whipped my leg out and knocked the guy off balance. He began to fall, but also brought the woman with him. Shit. I lunged towards the girl and pushed her back into a standing position. It was easier since the trash had let her go to try to stop his fall. Who the fuck are you? The dirtbag spit, but I didn't respond. I try not to in case a civilian has a quirk that could identify me. Once I made sure the woman was standing steadily and let her go and spun around to face the sick fuck. I whipped a gun equipped with a tranquilizer from one of my pockets and pointed it at him. The woman behind me gasped and the man stopped moving completely. He opened his mouth, probably to beg, but I didn't bother to listen to whatever crap came out of his mouth and shot him in the arm. In a few seconds his breathing evened out and he was unconscious. "Call the police, please." I spoke to the woman in a soft tone and I could see her shadow nod its head. With that done, I ran towards the fire escape by the bar and scaled it in an instant. Welp, that was probably it for my night. I'm exhausted and by this point the police will probably be looking for me. I turned towards the north, ready to begin to sprint when I finally noticed that black shadow lurking in the corner. Damn it, I'm usually better than this. "Yamikumo, I'm here to take you into custody." Eraserhead stepped into the moonlight and I flinched away. Yeah, no, I'm not really into prison time. I know that's probably a kink for other people, and who am I to judge, but it doesn't really do anything for me. I'm more of an adrenaline guy, but I bet you could tell that seeing what my nightly activities are. I let my brain-to-mouth filter just disappear in hopes to distract him while I grabbed a few smoke bombs from a secret pocket. The underground hero sighed and I smiled to myself in the knowledge that I was already annoying him. "I hope you don't make these weird talks a continued thing." The hero might have meant that to be to himself, but I heard it anyway. Hey, my random and very interesting conversations I have with almost no push to have are a founding point on my personality and I quite like them. Plus, you could just let me go and then we wouldn't have to have these talks anyway. I replied and got another sigh in return. Sadly, that isn't an option, seeing as I got assigned to a task force for finding you and bringing you in. I almost dropped the bombs when I heard that. What? Hell no. I've been successfully avoiding you for 3 years and now you're tasked to find me. Why does anyone even need to find me? I'm not that useful, I screeched. Apparently someone up high has become upset about the amount of vigilantes running around. Now, I'm stuck with the duty of cleaning up their mess. Eraserhead replied and took a step towards me while readying his capture weapon. I can't believe you actually answered my question. You probably shouldn't have done that and I'm pretty sure that broke at least one law, but thanks anyway. In one fluid motion I threw the smoke bombs and also launched myself off the roof. Eraserhead's capture weapon soared over my head and I hit the ground running. Aw damn it, I wanted to run across the roofs to get home. Now I'll just have to use the streets like a normal person. I looked around my room, doing a mental inventory. Nothing out of place and nothing hurt, besides being sore. Wait, where are my glasses? I moseyed over to the desk and picked up the frames, putting them on. Then I got all my art supplies out. Okay, which should I do, the eye or the cat? Definitely the eye. I would kill myself if I finished the cat and accidentally got some paint on it. The eye will be so much easier to redo if necessary. I rummaged through my secret drawer until I got my palette, a large amount of different sized brushes, and the paint. Then I brought out my canvas and set it up. That line looks a little wonky. Let me just, perfect. It took me about 5 minutes to go over what I had done beforehand and fix any little mistakes. And then I was ready to start painting the eyes. Thankfully I had decided the colors earlier, so I didn't have to worry about what to choose. I got out a forest green color, white, and sun yellow. With those, I created 2 new colors, both yellow-green, but different shades, one lighter and one darker. Then I got my gold out and mixed it with the yellow. On my palette were now 6 colors: forest green, sun yellow, medium yellow-green, light yellow-green, yellow-gold, and white. Fucking stupid-ass motherfucking eyes. Gah, why won't you work? The painting was not going quite how I expected it. The dark green was too green, so I had to fix that, and then the swatches of colors were too noticeably different, so I had to remix everything to make it more even and blur it together. Then I couldn't get the placements of the colors just right, so I had to kinda mix and match until the placements looked right. I took a step back and looked at what I had so far. It looked strangely realistic. The middle of the eye's sun yellow blurring into the outside, which was ends dark green, shadows and lights accented. For the final thing I added little lines of yellow gold. By the end of it, the eyes probably had 3 whole layers of paint from me going over my work and fixing it. Fuck ye. I trailed off, not wanting Inko to wake up. Not my best work, but if someone asked me what it was, I would definitely think cat eye and begrudgingly impressed, so I counted as a win. I washed a smaller brush and picked up. I dabbed the tip in white paint and went over the outline of the eye, making sure it was perfectly circular. Honestly, the thing that took the longest was washing my brushes afterwards. I had to sneak into the kitchen and run water over them. When I was sure I got the paint out, I whacked it against the counter edge and placed it on a towel to dry. Rinse and repeat. After I finished the brushes I checked the time and whooped. It was 4:38, so I had about 3.5 hours left of me time. Well, 1.5 hours, since I had hell training at 6. Time it get Yamikumo back, then cue maniacal laughter. A couple nights ago, Yamikumo, the good brother he is, speed cleaned our room as Deku had gotten tipped off that Inko might be checking its cleanliness. But during it, he accidentally hid some of my favorite brushes, and nearly ruined them by shoving them in a desk. Again, it was accidentally, but I am always one to hold a grudge. I snuck back into my room and opened up his secret compartment in the desk. It was really easy to find all of his knives. All of them, and then I got to work. I hid them all over the room, of course sending him a text that they were gone to make sure he didn't go into battle unarmed. One was taped behind my canvas, one was on top of the ceiling fan, inside pants pockets, the list goes on. That's what you get, Yami. I cackled as I put the last one in an All Might plushie. It had a zipper. I wasn't just ruining it. I made sure to take my time with this prank. And once I finished, it was time for me to go to the trash beach. When I got there, the weird stick man was there as well, and I could already feel my muscles being sore just from looking at the piles. Fun fact, I was right. The trash was endless, and so was that guy's stamina for yelling useless encouragement. I did get out of it a little earlier than usual to go to school, making something up about maybe being late and running as far away as possible as fast as I could. Not that the school would be much better than the beach, but that won't be my problem. Serves Izuku right for putting me through this bullshit. My everything hurts. I bemoaned Kaken as I woke up in my chair. Mikumo must have gotten here early. Usually I wake up in a hallway. Hey, if you hadn't put off training to be a hero for so long, then this wouldn't have fucking happened. Bakugo remarked, and I frowned at him. Bakugo didn't know exactly what I was doing, just that I had finally begun to train to be a hero. Well, how was I supposed to know if the others wanted to be heroes with me? I couldn't do that to them. I replied, and Bakugo looked thoughtful for a bit. I think even if they didn't want to be a hero. At this, a small smile graced his features, like he knew something I didn't. They would do it for you, I guess. I mean, they kind of already are. Mikumo had to train with All Might in the morning, and Deku and Yamikumo had to deal with the consequences of said training. Yeah, so stop worrying about it, dumbass. My best friend turned back to face the board right as the teacher entered the room, and I was forced to get all of the needed supplies for the class out of my backpack. Dang it, I got a homework question wrong, I muttered as I glanced at the paper during lunch. Kaken plopped down next to me and grimaced. Oh no, I'm going to fail because I got one fucking homework question wrong. He tried to imitate me and failed, but that was probably the point. Oh come on, you know I didn't mean it like that. But I had 100 in this class, and now that's gone. I stuffed the homework back into my backpack and collapsed onto the table. All my hard work for nothing. What class? Bakugo asked around a mouthful of food. History, my best subject. Well, technically not the subject I'm the best at, but history is just all about memorizing facts and places, and I don't really have any time to forget any of those facts, so overall it's just the easiest to do well in. The others are close, but in math and science you can easily mess up a problem even if you know everything. And I always write too much in English. I rambled, and Bakugo finally put up a hand to make me shut up. Sorry Kaken. Yeah, well, with how much you talk, it's no surprise that you write too much. Just write normally and then cut the unimportant parts out of the essay and you'll be fine. How am I supposed to do that? All of it's important, and sometimes, even if it isn't really the main thing I'm talking about, I connect it to the main thing and then my essay won't make sense without it. I give up. You're hopeless. That's mean, Kaken. Come on, hurry up, Izuku. Class ended a little late and it'll look fucking weird as shit when you just suddenly stop in the hallway. Bakugo muttered as he stalked up to my desk. I know, Kaken, I'm coming. I hurriedly packed up my books and supplies and then glanced at the clock once I was done. Oh no, only 5 minutes left till Deku comes out. My teacher really went over. I grabbed my backpack and stood up. Once I had, Kaken took a hold of my arm and tugged me out the door. We went through the not-so-occupied hallways into a small bathroom. Let's wait here till you turn, Bakugo decided, and I internally agreed. You make it sound like I'm a werewolf. I laughed. Who knows, you might be. You don't remember anything, so you have no proof. He shot back and I momentarily froze. Wait, he's right. Sadly, I didn't have time to demand proof that I wasn't indeed a werewolf, and soon enough I was Deku. I blinked as the image of Katsuki cleaning his teeth in a mirror came into my vision. I looked around at what appeared to be a public bathroom before setting down the heavy backpack on my back. What are you doing, Katz? I asked as I slid up behind him, making eye contact in the mirror. He dropped his hands from his face and turned to face me, coming within inches of me. I didn't notice how close we were until he bumped our noses. Sorry, I said, blushing. He chuckled as I backed up a little. Nah, it's fine. He grinned and grabbed my bag from the floor before lacing our hands. He gave me a little tug when I didn't move, still blushing some. Come in, dork, don't you have somewhere to be? MMH, I guess, if you count not being killed by mom as somewhere to be. I'd rather be here though. With you, that is, not in the bathroom. I'll visit later. The walk home was slowed by a villain fight, and by the time I was home I was almost 15 minutes late. Opening the door as quietly as possible, I rushed to the kitchen and began making her udon as usual. Unfortunately, I didn't account for the volume of the tap and was interrupted by a hand grabbing my hair. And just where do you think you were? I bet you were whoring yourself out to Katsuki, weren't you? Trying to get in on his fame when he becomes a hero. Well, let me give him a hand and get rid of his pest problem. I cried out at the feeling of the counter's edge slamming into the side of my head. She threw me to the ground by the handful of hair she had in her hand and stomped her foot into my head. Worthless, useless, incompetent piece of shit. You don't deserve anything I've given you. Well, I can agree with her on the last one at least. The hell did I ever do to her? I wish you were never born, you fucking mistake. I wish you were dead. At least then I wouldn't have to waste all my money on you. I felt her tears hit my face, but I couldn't find it within myself to feel anything but sorry for whoever she married to make me. I wished for a moment that I could run away just to stop making her believe there was anyone out there who loved her. What a pathetic life she lives. By the time she finished her tantrum, I was feeling a little loopy and disoriented. I watched her leave with unfocused eyes before I slid to my feet unsteadily, most likely accidentally forgetting whatever she ordered me to do, and slipped out of the house. I sighed as my back hit the wooden door and began to make my way to Katsuki's house. I had to swallow back bile as the world spun around me. By the time I got to Katsuki's and knocked on the window, I was about ready to pass out in his bushes. His face came into view and he had to basically drag me through his window to get me inside as I was too dizzy to find proper footing. Geez, Deku, it looks like you might have a concussion or something. Let me get some ice and a band-aid. It looks like you murdered someone. He mumbled to himself as he sat me on his bed and prodded my face. Not this time, I mumbled back deliriously. Wha? He gave me an "are you drunk or something" look before walking out to go get supplies. I touched my head and drew it back to find blood. Must have gotten cut when I hit the counter, I managed to rationalize. I was shocked back awake, not having noticed I was passing out, by Katsuki's arm cradling my falling back and head and setting me upright. I giggled and smiled at him as he sat down in front of me and began to clean my face with a wet towel. What are you smiling about, dork? You're the one who looks like they got hit with a meat tenderizer, not me. He carefully placed the band-aid over the cut that apparently sat over my eyebrow before grabbing the ice in my hand and holding both to my forehead over the big bruise blooming there. Nothing, you're just pretty and sweet and stuff, I replied, eyes scanning his sharp face. He blushed at the attention. Oh yeah, you sure that's not just drunk sounding? Head rattled Deku talking. I'm sure. You're like the prettiest Katsuki. I bet every Katsuki is named after you cause you're so awesome and pretty. He laughed at that. Even the ones born before me. Especially those ones. They were waiting and praying to be born you is all. And they don't get to have you cause you're my Katsuki. I put my hand on his arm and grabbed his sleeve, shaking him a little. Oh, is that right? I'm your Katsuki. You're gonna remember that when you're sane again. He was definitely getting a kick out of it, and my delirious brain was starting to get upset that he wasn't taking it seriously. Always, you're mine and I'm yours, and it's always gonna be like that, got it? His smile softened and we both blushed a little. He put his forehead against mine and sighed lightly. I like the sound of that, D. You really mean that? You sure you're not just talking out of your ass or something? He asked almost nervously. Yeah, I'm sure, I replied as firmly as I could. He tilted my chin up to face him and looked into my still sort of cloudy eyes. I smiled at him but frowned when he patted me on the face and turned back to my head injury. Yeah, you're completely gone right now. We can talk about the implications of that later. For now, go to sleep, I guess, and I'll figure it out with Yami later. I whined but laid down nonetheless. I was out like a light. This isn't my bed. I groaned and tried to look around. But when I did, the world spun and I gave up pretty quickly. Astute observation, Fokker. I heard Bakugo's voice next to me, but I didn't bother moving in case it would make me want to throw up again. Oh, joy, this is pure deja vu. Waking up in your bed feeling like death. I hope this doesn't become a common occurrence. I laughed a little and heard Bakugo sigh at my antics. I hope so too. I don't want to have to keep hosting your beat-up ass, my friend retorted. I'm not exactly sure if he's my friend, cause I don't really interact with him. Or at all, but if he's Deku's friend, and possibly boyfriend, though I'm not quite sure yet, then he is under an obligation to be my friend. Awa, you're sure sweet Bakugo. I'm sure you don't mean that. You've already done it twice for Deku. Why not just add to your list of people to be nice to? I chirped and Bakugo growled. Like, honestly flat out growled. I was torn between laughing and making him even madder, but I decided I liked only having a small concussion. Get the fuck out of my house. I know you're healed enough to, so don't bother to try and weasel out more nice things out of me. I'm not a nice person. Bakugo got up from wherever he was and opened his door. So mean. I chirped again. I was really trying to embrace my annoying side to do exactly what you would expect, annoy the fuck out of Bakugo. Also, annoying someone, or at least talking like I did, was kind of a coping mechanism for me. The person would get mad at me, instead of worried for me, which is actually surprisingly helpful. I swung my feet over the edge of the bed and waited for a second so my headache would go down a little bit. After a few seconds, I made my way over to Bakugo and smiled at him. Well, I'm going to assume that you aren't going to tell me what and why this happened to Deku. Bakugo narrowed his eyes, but didn't say anything. Okay then. Anyway, thank you for having me. I then made my way out of his room. Time to go home. I hope Deku didn't fuck anything up while I was gone. I quietly opened the front door of my apartment, which really isn't something I normally do. However, I don't know if Mom expected Deku to return, which means it's safer to enter the house the normal way. Where are you? An ice-cold voice came from the living room right as I entered the entryway. Shit. Deku, why did you have to leave me to deal with this? Katsuki's place, Mom. I coded the words in apology and guilt, which maybe was a bit overboard, but go big or go home. So, you decided that it was okay to ditch me and not finish any of your chores just to hang out with a boy that you see every day. Did you think that was a good decision? No. Oh God, I have no idea what to do. I usually start fights, not try to finish them. And even then, it's with fists, not words. I mean, I would like to think that I'm good with words, but usually I just word vomit, so I'm not exactly sure if I can apply that to myself. Is that a statement or a question? The ice hadn't thawed from her voice, but now I could see it in her eyes. Inko was standing in front of the entryway exit, meaning I couldn't escape. A statement. I responded and had to repress the step backwards that I wanted to take. So, if you thought it was a bad idea, why did you do it? Fuck, all these back and forths aren't good for my concussion. At least it isn't that bad, or else I would have been murdered by this point. From Inko or it, I have no idea. Well, I had issues with my homework, and Bakugo understood it, so I went to his house. However, it took longer than I expected and I wasn't paying attention to the clock. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to forget. Please work. Inko stepped forwards and slapped me across the face. The world spun and I collapsed at her feet. That definitely wasn't good for my concussion. Don't do it again. My cooking isn't nearly as good as yours, which is why I make you make my food. Also, there are dishes that need to be washed. Wash them. With that, the abusive asshole walked away and I took a moment to catch my breath. She hit me. I didn't think she would do that. Sure, I knew she could get mad, but I didn't know she would hit her child. Unless that's normal. No, that can't be right. Parents aren't supposed to hurt their children. I think, probably. But also, what the fuck? She didn't seem to even hesitate, which must mean that Deku has to live through that often. Maybe some of these injuries weren't from bullying. Shakily, I got up and headed to the kitchen where there were indeed some dirty dishes stacked in the sink. I ignored the throbbing in my head and on my cheek, and instead started to scrub all the dirt I could out of the dishes. I didn't want Deku or Mikumo to be punished for not having to clean the dishes enough, especially since they wouldn't be at fault. With that in mind, it took me 20 minutes to get the plates and glasses cleaned and dried to perfection. Try to find something wrong with this witch. I'm going to sleep. I refuse to be awake for longer with this horrid concussion. So, with that, I slowly drifted off. I woke up with a jolt and immediately wanted to throw up. I could barely tell where I was. Fuck. I clutched my throbbing head. Please stop spinning. Holy shit. I knew the signs of a concussion, especially after having them multiple times. I squinted my eyes open, and when there was no immediate pain, I fully opened them. The room had stopped spinning and the nausea retreated for the most part. So not a bad concussion then. The change in person must have aggravated it. Thankfully, how I wanted to spend my day did not include screens or physical activity, but I still gave myself a quick onsova to make sure I was cleared to paint. Cut on eye and bruised cheekbone. Well, at least I now know how I got this. Giving myself the okay, I dragged my body out from under the covers. Was I sleeping? And brought my stuff out. I put on my apron and picked up some black and white paint. With the two, I made about 5 different shades to give me basically a whole spectrum. Going over to the canvas, I picked up a pencil. The cat was going to have to be many different shades of black or else it would look one-dimensional. Technically, I could freehand it, but that seemed stupid. So I had decided to circle all the sections I would need to paint differently to make it easier. Suddenly, a light bulb went off in my head, and I reached for my phone. Taking a quick photo of what I had done, I got Shinzo's contact up and sent it to him. Unnamed chat. Unknown number. Click to see attached image. Unknown number. What are your thoughts? Worth getting hit. Amethyst. ... Are you the kid from the cat cafe? Unknown number has changed their name to doesn't exist. Doesn't exist? Yeah, that's me. Didn't answer my question though. Amethyst. It's decent. Amethyst. Why is my name Amethyst? Doesn't exist. Decent. Fuck you. Amethyst. I said what I said. Amethyst. Seriously. All that time and you've only done that much. Amethyst. Doesn't exist. Well, that's true. But in my defense, around half my bones broke and I had to get them healed before I could begin. Amethyst. ... What? Doesn't exist. Wait, my bad, that was before I started. Doesn't exist. Also, it's been like only 4 days, I think. So SDFU. Amethyst. Vaguely concerned. Doesn't exist. Only vaguely. I must be doing something wrong. Doesn't exist has named the chat vaguely concerned. Doesn't exist. Anyway, I gotta start on the cat, so bye. Amethyst. Bye. Doesn't exist has left the chat. Decent. Who does he think he is? Unless he's an artist, which he definitely isn't. He has no right to comment on my art. And even if he was, vaguely perturbed, I picked back up my pencil and started to draw in the lines. Time flew by and soon the creature was filled with little scribbles. Taking a break, I could feel the pain that had been steadily building up in my head. Oh shit, the screen. Fuck me. I'm definitely not going to be able to finish this cat today in this state. I should be fine putting the base colors in though. I hope. I had already sectioned out where each base color was going to go, as well as made them, so painting it was pretty quick. The hardest part was blending them together and making sure everything was fine. I picked up a little sponge to give it some texture and dotted it around the outside of the wet paint. I wouldn't need to worry about the inside's texture. That would be a future Mikumo's problem, but the outside would have looked super weird if I hadn't done anything at that moment. After I finished, I set an alarm for 5:30, laid down, shut my eyes. I then opened them, got up, dry swallowed some pain medication, and tried again. Beep beep beep. Stupid fucking alarm. Sighing, I turned it off, dug through my bag for a granola bar and trudged out of the house. My boy. I moaned in pain, holding my ears. Please don't be that loud. I feel like death. I then realized how that sounded. I'm not hungover, I'm just concussed. Just concussed. The skeleton man, I still don't know his name, asked, obviously concerned. Yep. With that, I picked up a random piece of trash and mentally cursed Izuku out, something that had started to become more frequent. Young Midoriya, please sit down. A concussion is not something to play with. Jesus Christ, still too loud. I know. That's why I took some pain meds. Wait, I gotta sound like Izuku. Don't worry. I'm sure I'll be fine. I just tripped and fell. Hit the counter on the way down. I even got checked out by a doctor and got the all clear. Sorry for worrying you. I dropped the trash in his truck and sighed, rotating my shoulders before going to pick something else up. I should have brought sunglasses. The light might soon start to aggravate my head. The man waved his hands around widely. I just don't want you to overwork yourself. But if you're fine, then you're fine. Let's get started, shall we? Let's get started, shall we? There's no let's in this fucking equation. You just sit around and make life harder for me, you skinny ass bitch. I muttered as I turned away from him. Did you say something, my boy? Nope. I smiled, it falling away as soon as he couldn't see my face. Did yo usi so I'm at Henji. Bleg, I hate this. I slightly, and only slightly mind you, regret trying to become a hero. I muttered face first into my desk when Bakugo walked up to me. Don't be a pussy, my best friend said, and I groaned. If that's your version of encouraging advice, then we have an issue, I replied, but I did lift my face to look up to Kaken. It's not like you're even doing any of the work, so I think you shouldn't complain this fucking much. Bakugo remarked, and I frowned a little. I know, and I feel so bad about it. Mikumo doesn't even want to be a hero and neither does Deku, yet they have to do everything. I mean, technically I'm the one who has had to complete all the homework for 14 years, so that might make us even. But even then, this is what I want to be, and I know that Mikumo would want to be an artist, and I'm not exactly sure how being both a hero and an artist would work out. Probably not very well though, which makes this unfair for him. Izuku. Bakugo cut through my ramble with a harsh exclamation. What? I asked. Shut the fuck up. Sorry. I rubbed the back of my neck in embarrassment. I should probably ask All Might to change our schedule to after school only. I muttered to myself as the teacher finally began class. What did you just say? Bakugo appeared out of nowhere right beside my face, causing me to gasp. Relax, nerd. We're bringing up our homework. Then why are you closer to the back of the classroom? But I could be wrong, but I thought I heard a hero name in the midst of your goddamn muttering. And, oh, I don't know, it sounded pretty fucking familiar. I got out of my seat. Oh, the teacher called us up to give them our homework. While I'm so out of it, I didn't even hear them. Probably overworked myself this morning. How are you feeling, Kaken? The glare I got was scathing, but honestly didn't ruffle me as I made my escape to the front of the classroom and then to my seat in the back. Bakugo, as he was sitting in the first row, couldn't press me further, and I breathed a sigh of relief. He's going to kill me when he finds out that I was keeping this from him. Probably also because I didn't invite him to join. The school day ended unceremoniously, as always. The final bell rang and I was quick to pull out all the homework that I hadn't finished during lunch or any break possible. Really, you're doing all that shit right now? Bakugo scoffed when he saw me already scribbling answers. Well, I mean, no one else can really do it, and I probably won't have time to do it during lunch tomorrow since I already have to do the homework assigned that day during them. Plus, it's only one worksheet, I replied. In a few seconds, all the answers were filled out and I could finally put everything away and leave the place I spend 99% of my time. Fucking finally. Bakugo sighed and swung his backpack onto his back. Let's go, nerd. With that, my best friend walked out the doors. However, when I did, it didn't go as well. Well, here comes the faulty boy with his guard dog. Man, you really can't go anywhere without him. A group of older guys were standing across from me in the hallway, and they were looking at me. Faulty, guard dog. What is this? Shut the fuck up. Bakugo snarled. He doesn't seem surprised by this, which means this has happened before, hasn't it? I just haven't been awake before. Oh, why, you'll bite me. The group laughed at the taunt and I could see Bakugo tense up, ready to punch the assholes in the face. I'll do worse than bite you. I will fuck your shit up. Don't test me and shut the fuck up about Izuku. He isn't faulty. Bakugo moved in front of me, and I took a step back. Are you sure about that? Because I seem to know that this kid over here can't even remember shit, which seems pretty faulty to me. I tried to convey with my eyes that I had no idea what to do in this situation. But since Bakugo was standing in front of me, it didn't really work. I really hope this is a strange occurrence. Oh shit, I'm going to switch soon, aren't I, Kaken? I need some help here. As if he heard my thoughts, Bakugo whispered, "Put your stuff on the ground and move closer to me." I blanched. "They're not after your stuff, Izuku. They're after you. But they're also scared of me, so you should be fine. I just don't want you to have to replace shit just because these extras don't know where they stand." I did what he said, slipping my backpack off my shoulders and basically pressing my chest to Bakugo's back. The bullies laughed at my strange position, but I could see the fear in their eyes when Bakugo shot them a glare. One of them even took a step back. The leader seemed to not know when to back off, because he laughed and said, "Yeah. He looks like real hero material hiding behind his one and only friend. Are you guys even friends? Cause I know 2 really good ways to bribe someone into being your guard dog." His lackeys were tugging on this guy's shirt, obviously trying to get away from Bakugo's promise of death, but he shrugged them off. "So, which one was it? I think I can go." That was the last thing I heard as I went to sleep, leaving Deku with this mess. "Why are you protecting him? He's a freak. I mean, look at him, he's just pitiful." As I reoriented myself, I came face to face with someone's back. I looked up to see Katsuki standing in front of me in the process of punching whoever was yelling in the face, cutting off his words. "Shut the fuck up, you insolent waste of space. You better get the fuck out of here before I start using the Geneva Convention as a to-do list. You may have forgotten, but I can quite literally blow up this entire school with my bare hands. Now shut the fuck up and scram." The boys reluctantly walked off, throwing glares over their shoulders. I looked back at Katsuki as he turned to face me. "Sorry about that. Usual assholes forgetting their place. I'm not always around, but when I am, you're under my protection and they should know that." I giggled a little. I wrapped my arms around his neck and stood up on my toes a little. "Under your protection, huh? So I'm yours then?" I asked, twirling his hair in my fingers. "I thought we established that last night while you were high off your ass on child abuse." He replied. What?" I stuttered out, face flushing. He started laughing hysterically. "What does that mean?" He tried to say through his laughing fit. "You came into my house with a concussion last night, drunk sounding as hell, and basically asked me to marry you. It was fucking hilarious. Wha? Did you at least say yes?" He stopped his laughing in favor of blushing till his face was the color of his eyes. I guess. I mean, I dunno. I never thought you'd exactly leave or anything," he mumbled out. I smiled and leaned over, pecking him on the cheek. What was that for? You're cute is all," I replied, stepping away to search for my backpack. Finally finding the kind of atrocious yellow thing, I grabbed it and threw it over my shoulder before returning and taking Katsuki's hand in mine. "Oh, stop your gawking. What's so weird about that?" Katsuki quickly started shaking his head in reply. "And nothing, I just wasn't expecting you to do that," he replied awkwardly, smirking. I leaned over and kissed him on the cheek a second time, mostly for the reaction. I got exactly what I wanted as he immediately started blushing again and mumbled for us to leave. We walked mostly in silence. We were both thinking. He kept blushing, so I had a bit of idea what gutter his mind was going down. Mine, on the other hand, was going in a completely different direction. I couldn't stop thinking about what the bullies had done to him, to us. Those kids from earlier hurt Katsuki. They made him upset. They made him angry. They forgot their place. Katsuki shouldn't have to defend me all the time, and he shouldn't lose his throne for me. I should make it up to him, punish them for him. I can be his second. I can make him happy if I solve this for him. Luckily, my idea was satisfied when Katsuki left, and I was almost instantly surrounded by the boys from before. The main kid had a quirk that allowed him to spray water from his eyes, and I shrank back as my uniform was dampened from behind. "Disgusting, useless bitch. You got us in trouble with Bakugo on purpose, didn't you?" one of the boys shouted. I cringed as an empty water bottle connected with the side of my head and turned to face the boy who'd spoken. "And maybe if you left me alone and found a wall to beat up instead, you wouldn't have that issue," I replied as strongly as I could. I was starting to get pretty mad and could feel a wave of annoyance taking over. "What did you say, you stupid slut? We were nice earlier when Bakugo was around, but it's just you against us now." The boy grabbed my hair and activated his quirk locksmith. Gravel from the ground flew to his hand, forming a stone key which he processed to stab into my side. I hissed as the blunt end pierced and ripped at the skin, embedding itself into the muscle above my hip. "I don't think I heard you correctly. Are you trying to tell us you have any purpose other than to be a shitty punching bag and a submissive little whore? I'm sure Bakugo the Almighty would just love to hear his toy is trying to act all brave." The group started cackling, grating on my nerves. I could feel my breaking point bubbling over. How dare they say something like that? I'm not his fucking toy. He cares about me. Katsuki would never settle for some useless bitch. He's better than that. They need to learn a fucking lesson for talking about him like that. I growled, eyes shadowed by my hair, and reached down, ripping the stone key from where it was stuck in my flesh. I made quick work on turning and using my full body weight slammed the end into the boy's face. The corner shredded through the kid's eye and nose and he tumbled back screaming. I turned as the other members of the group screamed and spun, sending the key into the next kid's neck. I smiled as blood bubbled from the wood and snickered as he fell down, choking on his own blood as he tried to cry. The last boy was shaking and tried to back up but found himself tripping over the concrete. I leaned down and dug my hand into his hair as his friend had done to me just minutes before. Katsuki is royalty. He doesn't need some toy following him around. He needs a queen, and I'll kill anyone if it means I sit by his throne. The boy shook with fear as I raised the key and ripped it through his throat. I stood and walked away, not caring that the sounds of two of the boys still drowning in their blood followed me in the depths of my mind. I fought the instinct to use the muscle memory of Yami's medical training to go save them. I didn't feel like going back home, so I settled for going to the park Katsuki, and I sat it before my first fight and hid in a tree. I was too lost in thought to think about the consequences of not going home to Inko or the fact that I had a reasonable stab wound. This is utter fucking bullshit. When I woke up only to see leaves in front of me and a tree branch underneath me, it was safe to say I wasn't happy. I began to move to stand up, but I stopped when a flash of red-hot pain came from above my hip and I felt more blood seep out of the hole in it. Am I stabbed? What the fuck did Deku do to get stabbed? I don't usually get stabbed and I run around and punch people all night. Or at least, I used to before Deku decided to get beat up all the time and I didn't actually have the ability to run along rooftops anymore. Ugh, this sucks. Instead of moving again, I began to rummage through my pockets in hopes of finding my phone. Thank fuck, I exclaimed when my hand latched onto the telltale shape of my brick-ass phone. For once, Deku was actually prepared for something. However, I wish that something would have been being stabbed because that thing hurt like a bitch. I sighed, and then typed in a number and hit call. God, I hope she doesn't murder me. That would be unfortunate. Recovery girl here. May I ask who this is? Her old voice came through my cheap phone and I quickly gathered up my courage and let go of my self-preservation. Hey recovery girl. Thanks for answering my call. How are you? I chirped into the phone and I could hear her sigh on the other side. What have you done this time? She asked with disappointment lacing her tone. Well, you see, I don't really know. I just suddenly found myself hiding in a tree with a stab wound right above my hip. It's funny actually because this seems to be happening to me quite often recently. But oh well, memory does become a fickle thing in old age. Don't mess with me if you still want me to come and heal you. Joke's on you recovery girl, I'm not messing with you. Sadly, I couldn't find a way to include the word Deku in my story, which probably would have confused you even more. Sorry ma'am, but really, you will come and heal me right? I asked, even though I knew what the answer would be. Recovery girl might threaten me a lot, but she's actually a softie at heart and won't let me bleed out in a tree. Wait, how the fuck did Deku get into the tree? Somehow Deku got stabbed and decided a great idea would be to climb into a fucking tree. How did he get up here? How am I supposed to get down? Recovery girl, I kinda need an answer. Your silence is concerning. Have you hung up? I really hope not, because I went through all the effort of finding my phone without bleeding out more and I kinda do need you so I don't die. Although if I do die, my body is going to fuck with the police, because I'll probably have climbed down at that point and they'll figure out that for some reason I climbed a fucking tree only to climb back down and they'll be so confused. Even I'm confused. Who climbs a tree when bleeding out? Me apparently. Are you going into shock? Recovery girl finally spoke up and I laughed a little. Nope, I'm like 99% positive this isn't shock because I tend to go on long rants about things normally. But honestly, I don't trust my perception skills right now, so this could be shock. But I'm also pretty positive it isn't. Give me an address or location. You clearly need my help. The youthful heroine commented from wherever she was and I laughed more. You finally realized that. Wow. I quickly got up my GPS on my phone and texted her where it said I was. There you go. I texted it to you. Please come quickly. I'm already on my way. I'll be there in 5 minutes. With that, the hero hung up the phone. Wow, rude. Hanging up with no goodbye and leaving me to get out of this fucking tree without anyone to listen to my wonderful commentary. A true crime. I can't believe her. And she says she's a hero. The audacity. I kept talking to try and distract myself and I slowly eased off my branch and onto one directly below it. Thankfully, Deku hadn't climbed too far up the tree, so I only had to flop down 3 branches before I was on the ground. On the way down, I noticed something I hadn't before. Why the fuck am I covered in blood? What did Deku do that made him covered in blood? Did he kill someone? Holy fuck, did he? Honestly, that would be flat out hilarious if he did. a hero, a villain, and a vigilante sharing the same body. That sounds like a fanfic someone would write. At that last sentence, I eased myself off the final branch and onto the ground. That hurt like a sonophobage. Hopefully Recovery Girl will be here soon. I can't wait till I don't feel like I've been run over by a pickup truck with knives. You're lucky I live so close. I turned my head and smiled at Recovery Girl, who frowned when she saw the state of my uniform. What have you done to yourself? It's only one small stab wound, a minor inconvenience. The blood that's everywhere else is just me trying to deal with it and failing. I lied through my smile, and all she did was grunt in reply. Hopefully that meant she believed it. Recovery Girl leaned down and kissed me on the forehead. Immediately, relief crashed through me and I sighed in response. Thank you. I looked at her and smiled even as my eyelids began to flutter closed because of a mixture of an adrenaline crash and the result of her quirk. You're welcome. I hope you don't mean to make this common. The old woman patted my head while she said the words. Like I said, she really did have a soft spot for young teenagers. I don't. Plus, this one wasn't even my fault. To be fair, the last one wasn't either. I commented, and the youthful heroine just sighed. Oh, but while you're here, please tell Eraserhead to stop following me and trying to arrest me. It's really annoying. All Recovery Girl did was pat my head again and then walk back the way she came. Once she went out of my line of sight, I grabbed a tree branch and hauled myself back into the tree. It wouldn't exactly be good if someone saw a middle schooler covered in blood sitting by a tree, and I was likely to be seen in the tree. Once that was done, I let my eyelids close and descended into the darkness that was calling me. I flailed my arms around, trying to catch myself before I fell out of the tree I was in. Looking around, I could see that I was sitting in a tree in the park near my house, which was wild because it was 3 in the morning. I'm lucky someone didn't mug me. It was then I saw that I was covered in blood. Well, fancy that. Maybe I did get mugged. Strangely, my mental inventory didn't come up with any injuries, besides my hip being sore, which means this is not my blood. And speaking that, Yamikumo doesn't like to make a mess. Either he changed his mind or something big went down with Deku. Not that I'm surprised. At this point, I had 2 options. Option 1, go home, which, looking at the backpack besides me, I hadn't been all day, or 2. Well, I don't quite know what option 2 would be. I definitely couldn't go home though, not looking like this. Although I would have to go home eventually. I'd rather I faced Inko's wrath than Deku once he got back from school. So how do I get out of these clothes? Phone. I quickly patted my pockets to find the rectangular object. Where the fuck is my phone? As soon as I found it, I found the contact I wanted and hit call. Hello. A very groggy voice answered me. Oh, thank fuck you're up. It's me, by the way, Akatani Mikumo. I'm, in a bit of a pickle and I could really use some help. Shisno's voice immediately got sharper, sleep leaving him at my words. I could hear his blanket shift as he sat up and replied. What kind of help, specifically? Haha, well, I'm covered in blood. Not my own blood, nor blood I spilled, and I really need a change of clothes and a clear set of eyes. I don't know. I woke up in the park, in a tree, and I don't know what the hell happened to me besides little snippets of what I remembered, and I'm kind of freaking out. That honestly wasn't a lie. How I got bloody wasn't really concerning me, but I had no idea what to do, and the thought of an angry Inko, or the police finding me here all bloody, was really starting to freak me out. Shit, I'm on my way. How silent do you want me to be? 'Cause if things are really bad, I can get my parents to help. He was obviously moving around, getting ready to meet me. No, I'm good. I'm not injured or anything, and I don't know enough to be of any use if an adult got involved. I just really need a change of clothes. I looked around and gave my general location to the boy, before climbing down from the tree and ending the call. The panic had left me feeling about as calm as I was when I woke up, now that I didn't really have to worry about anyone finding me that I didn't want. Now it was time to wait. Akatani. A voice came from my right, and I looked over to see Shinso standing next to me. He was hunched over and had obviously run here, a duffel bag in his hands. That's a lot of blood. I chuckled. Yeah, I noticed. Just to reiterate, it is not mine, nor did I spill it. I was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. Or more accurately, I got knocked out by some guy who probably wanted to mug me and woke up with his body on top of me. His throat was cut. I had come up with that explanation during the wait, and it seemed pretty good to me. Shinso, thankfully, bought it and set the duffel bag down. That's, well, shit. He shook his head. Anyway, here's some clothes. They're probably too big for you, but well, they're all I got. Shinso turned away as I got changed, and soon enough I was folding the bloody clothes and placing them beside the tree. So, I suppose we never really got to know each other. Thanks for coming out to meet me even though I could have been a serial killer. He shrugged. No problem. You can't fake that much panic. Besides, you're just a kid like me, and my parents, along with me, could beat your ass pretty easily. I was then reminded of all the times my dormant muscle memory from Yamikumo kicked in and chuckled. Well, you don't know that for sure. He stared up at me and then looked up and down, before giving me an unbelieving look, probably at my lack of obvious muscle, so I pulled up his shirt a little bit to show my six-pack. His eyes widened and I laughed. Baggy clothes, my man. Baggy clothes. I could probably deadlift you no problem. Wow, okay then. And here I thought you were a twig. If it wasn't as dark, I probably would have been able to see the slight blush Shinso had gained, but as it was I was unaware. Yeah, I get that a lot. I paused. This reminds me. There's a cool cat cafe nearby, and I should probably repay you for coming out here in the middle of the night. Shinso got out his phone, most likely to send a quick text, and then nodded. As we were walking, he kind of paused and turned towards me. Why did you call me? We've literally only met once and for like 10 seconds. But suddenly I'm your go-to for when you got mugged. I suppose that was a very valid question. I literally have one friend. Well, one minor acquaintance. He's a friend of a friend, I suppose. So, yeah, not many other people to call. Shinso seemed to sadden at this news, but didn't ask me any more questions as to why I didn't have anyone. He probably thinks it's quirk related. Well, it kind of is in a way. So he definitely has a bad quirk, or maybe not even a quirk at all. Anyone that doesn't deal with quirk discrimination is always super confused when a nice person doesn't have anyone to call. So, wannabe hero with a villainous quirk that was adopted by two pro heroes. Tough luck. His head snapped towards me so fast I thought he was going to get whiplash. Dude, really? Not a serial killer? You weren't surprised when I didn't have any friends. You immediately rushed to help me and thought you could take me, and you brought up your parents as a way to get me help. Also, your last name isn't one I recognize. He looked at me incredulously. Just because I'm an artist doesn't mean I'm academically stupid. I got a surprised snort out of the middle schooler at that, and his figure lost a lot of the tension in it. I don't watch basically any television, but sometimes if I'm bored I will read Izuku's hero notebooks. He has at least a page on every single pro hero. I'm not even exaggerating. I don't know when he has the time, but reading them is a fun pastime. As far as I know, analysis is something all of us enjoy. You sure you're not a serial killer? I shrug. Well, you're right. Brainwashing. Not a very big crowd pleaser if you know what I mean. He looked away, obviously scared from my reaction. Oh no, I'm quaking in my fucking boots. Quirks are weapons, nothing more, nothing less. Brainwashing could make the villains give up their hostages. A growth quirk could give you a tumor in your brain. Brainwashing could make you kill yourself. Growth could save a farmer's crops. It doesn't matter the quirk, only the human. I paused, cringing. Actually, that was the cheesiest thing I've ever said, so entirely forget I ever said anything. I never thought of it that way. I slapped him in the arm. I said forget it. For slap get slap it. The purple-haired teen smiled, and I found myself smiling back. The cat cafe was wonderful. Lighting perfect. Cats purring, it was just fantastic. Sadly, I had to leave pretty soon after we got there. Honestly, I didn't want to face Inko's wrath, so I decided to sneak in, leave the clothes, and get the fuck out. And that's exactly what I did. Climbed in through the window of my room, dumped the bloody clothes in the wastebasket, sent a text message to the other alters about them, and got out. Turns out the trash beach was surprisingly comfortable to take a nap in, even if you get woken up by a blonde skeleton man yelling in your face. The next few days were, well, literally the same thing over and over again, as has literally been my life. For not the first time, I kind of wished I had Deku's time instead of mine. You can only do so much school before your brain melts out of your ears. Right now I was in English, and very much zoned out. That's not to say that I was fluent in English. Not yet at least, but the teacher is a D, so I decided he wasn't worth my time. On the other hand, Kaken was practically fluent in English, so he bullied some poor classmate out of their seat to come sit next to me and chat. Yo, Izuku, what are your plans over the weekend? He hissed in my direction, most likely wishing I was dead as I tear my muscles apart over and over again in a hope they get stronger. The urge to slam my head on my desk was overwhelming, but I refrained. Kaken gave me a weird look. Picking up some fucking trash isn't going to kill you, damn nerd. I gave him a look back. Have you ever dragged a refrigerator with a whole other person on top of it? Yeah, I didn't think so. And that was after about half a day of working, so until you do that you can shut your mouth and let me rightly complain. And this person on top of the fridge was your trainer, right? I narrowed my eyes suspiciously at him. The one who may or may not be All Might. That one. Kaken looked far too pleased with himself for that comment. I was really hoping he would have forgotten I said that, or just thought he heard wrong, but apparently not. I thought he would have immediately pestered me, so him only bringing what he overheard up now was very, very suspicious. Please tell me he wasn't following me to the beach. I don't know whether to be pleased you think I'm worthy of All Might's attention or just really disappointed in your lack of critical thinking skills. Thankfully, when I said that my occasional stutter didn't come and give me away, which probably only happened because I was lying to Bakugo. Come on, nerd, I know when you're lying. So, do tell me, how the fuck did you get All Might to start to train you? Bakugo snarled under his breath and I flinched a little. Is it worth it to keep lying? No, probably not. Since he already doesn't believe me, he'll just follow me to the beach and figure it out that way. Ugh, I hate having a smart friend. Fine, I'll tell you. Before you got attacked by the sludge villain, it attacked me. Bakugo's eyes widened and I kept talking to stop him from asking anything. All Might saved me and I did something kinda stupid. What a surprise. Bakugo muttered. Hey, I don't usually make decisions, so forgive me if I didn't know if it would be a smart one. Kaken just rolled his eyes and I took that as a sign to continue. Anyway, I wanted to ask All Might if I could be a hero, but he said he had to go. So I grabbed onto his leg and when he flew away, so did I. You fucking dumbass. Bakugo whisper yelled. Frantically, I tried to think of how to appease him. It all turned out fine. I didn't get hurt and neither did All Might. You're fucking lucky you didn't die. I know. So, to continue my explanation, I then asked All Might if I could be a hero. He said no. But then, after I saved you from the same villain, he found me again and said he was wrong. That I could be a hero. And then he offered me something. You see, can't tell anyone about this though. I started to stutter when I got to the part about one for all. I wasn't sure if I should tell him about it, and my nervousness about that seeped into my words. I know how to keep a fucking secret, Izuku. Don't worry about that, Kaken stated when he noticed my fear and some tension leaked out of my muscles. So, he offered to give me his quirk. Are you serious? My best friend gasped and I nodded. MHM. Yeah, well, I mean, my body can't handle it at this moment, which is what the strength training is for. So yeah, that's why I'm training at the beach. Good for you, dumbass. Bakugo punched me in the shoulder and I didn't flinch as much as I would have before. Getting the #1 hero to train you. That's some insane shit, isn't it? I still can't believe it's real. Bakugo, Midoriya, please refrain from talking in my class unless you would like to do it in front of the class in English. The teacher finally got fed up with us not paying attention and I shrunk down into my seat. Sorry, sensei, I muttered in reply and she just sighed and returned to the lesson. Hey, it's time to go, dork, Katsuki said, shaking my shoulder. I blinked up at him lazily and smiled. Stop that. Stop what? I asked as I grabbed my bag and shoved my school supplies inside. Katsuki was still sitting there blushing for whatever reason, so I poked him. Hey, weren't you just saying it was time to go, Kat? Why, yeah, never mind. He copied my actions and grabbed my bag from my hand before moving to leave. I caught his hand in my own and followed him. It was raining when we got outside and we had to cover ourselves with our jackets to try and stay dry. I laughed as we ran through the rain though, splashing in puddles and getting looks from the other walkers. Eventually we stopped under an awning, only about halfway home, to catch our breath. That was awesome. I huffed out, still grinning. Did you see that old hag's face? She was all children. In my town. How dare. Such savagery. We both cracked up again, remembering the accosted look of one poor woman who we'd passed. Honestly, I thought she was going to call the cops or something. She looked so scared. I grabbed my stomach and leaned against the wall behind me. Katsuki huffed again and turned to see where we had stopped. It was a small grocery store by the looks of it. There was an exhausted-looking teen texting at the register and one customer inside. A man suddenly ran past us into the store to get out of the rain, bumping Katsuki as we went. Katz growled. Fucking rude. At least say something, jackass, Katsuki muttered after him. I'm gonna go see if they have melon bread. I've been craving it. Okay, Katz, I'll wait here for you. I waved him off as he slammed the door open and made his way inside. I sighed and leaned back against the cold window. I was jolted out of the calm atmosphere by the sound of what seemed like a bullying situation about a block down. Knowing Katsuki would probably take a while, I made the probably awful decision to go check it out. Stopping outside the alleyway where the scuffle seemed to be happening, I could hear what seemed to be two teenagers beating up a younger student. It only took a moment to realize that the poor kid was quirkless. Wow, assholes have no bounds. Turning onto the dark, soaking alley, I carefully made my way towards the two boys in question. Not bothering to listen to whatever they were spouting about deserving it, I stepped up behind them and tapped the two boys on their shoulders. The taller of the two clearly must have had some kind of emotions quirk, because as soon as he saw me, his hair and eyes became an intense shade of red, contrasting sharply to the cocky yellow they were previously. Red growled and tried to throw a punch but was knocked off balance by my foot kicking him into the wall behind him. The second boy shouted in indignation and tried his hand at a punch too. I managed to poorly block it by grabbing the arm from the side and throwing it to my left. I reached through the opening I had made and in a spurt of rage and adrenaline grabbed his head and snapped it to the side with as much force as I could muster. The alley echoed with the loud snapping sound of a neck and I turned to face Red lazily. Stalking toward where he was lying distraught on the ground, I grinned before wrapping my hands around the bully's hair and copying the motion. The poor victim was nowhere to be found, so I had to assume he had run off when I stepped in. Throwing my uniform jacket back over my head, I stepped back out into the now drizzle. Spotting Katsuki standing outside the store, I made my way toward him. There you are, nerd. I thought you'd gotten lost or some shit. Now come on. I smiled as he grabbed my hand in his and started to drag me back home. Stopping once we got to our usual spot, we said our goodbyes before turning to return home. Entering the suspiciously quiet house, I turned to go making Ko's dinner, but stopped when I saw a small note on the table. Wow, she actually left a note this time. I mumbled before going to my room and flopping down on the floor to play on my phone. I'm not hurting. Wow, Deku, kudos to you. You managed to not get hurt for a single day. Super proud of you. I sighed and sunk deeper into the bed. It's a shame that you aren't here to hear my sarcasm. I would have punched you in the face if you were awake when I was. To be fair, that would mean punching me in the face, and it's possible that you would be able to stop it because we share a body. But if it did work, it would be worth it. I rolled off the bed and landed silently on the ground. I stretched my back out and then rummaged for all of my vigilante stuff. Costume, check. Bombs, check. Knives, mostly missing. Wait a minute, didn't Mikumo text me about my knives? I grabbed Izuku's backpack and pulled out my phone from it. We kept all the phones there in case we didn't end up home by the time we woke up. It was also useful to try and keep everything organized. I opened my texts and clicked on my chat with Mikumo. You did what to my knives? For barely smushing your paint brushes? I wish I could kill you, but I can't, and I'm also a vigilante, so that kinda goes against my morals. This is disappointing. In a flash, I texted back multiple death threats to Mikumo and put on my insanely complicated vigilante costume. I didn't have time to search for my knives because I really hadn't been doing enough good recently, seeing how my only time awake was filled with trying not to die because Deku was a bitch. I crawled out my window and swung myself up onto the roof. I then ran in a circle with my eyes closed to see which direction I would go tonight. After 10 seconds, I stopped and was pleasantly surprised to see that I was facing the south. It's always fun down there. Multiple idiots to beat up, and hopefully Eraserhead won't be anywhere nearby. I backed up to the north end of the roof and sprinted across the expanse and then leaped to the other side. Stand still, this is a robbery. I whipped around when I heard that yelled 1.5 blocks down from me. Immediately, I raced across the roofs until I was on top of a small store. The store had 2 floors, one for storing the food and the other was the actual shop. I started to listen closely and could make out some commotion coming from inside the building. I turned towards the back and scaled down the side until I reached a window. I whipped out my trusty pocket knife from my multiple pockets and removed the window screen. Not so quietly. I dropped the screen onto the ground and pushed the glass part of the window open. I then slithered inside and landed onto the floor. I searched around the room, opening all the doors, until I found the stairs leading down to where the robbery was taking place. I crept down them and opened the door into the actual store. This was usually when I would throw a knife and knock the attacker out, but Mikumo stole all my knives, so I had to improvise. I silently left my hiding spot and locked eyes with the cashier. The girl moved to make a noise, but I held up a finger to my lips in the universal sign of shut the fuck up. I said, give me all of your money. The robber roared and the cashier turned her attention back to the villain. I did. That's all we have right now. The girl was obviously panicking, and the robber looked ready to beat her head in. Oh, this might go bad really soon. Time to shoot the son of a bitch. I loaded my tranq gun with a tranquilizer dart and the girl's eyes widened. Thankfully, she didn't give me away, and in an instant the dart was lodged in the robber's neck. His hand reached up to grasp the area he just got shot in, but before he could even realize what happened, his eyes rolled back into his head and he crumpled to the ground. At this, the girl finally screamed, "What the fuck?" The girl backed up from where she was standing and I ran forwards, while putting my gun away, to inspect the robber. I patted him down and took all of his weapons off of him with a practiced hand. Then I grabbed the bag he loaded all the money into and put it on the counter. Have the police been called? I asked, and the traumatized girl managed to nod in reply. Good. Don't touch anything. We don't want your fingerprints affecting the evidence. With that I headed back the way I came, but faster because I could already hear the police in the distance. I slammed open the door to the stairs and sprinted up them. I then leaped through the already open window and scaled the small distance to the roof. Once there I ran, and by the police got to the store, I was at least 5 blocks away. Welp, that's one place saved. Good on me. You know what? I probably don't have enough time to engage in another fight, so I'll stop off at the cat cafe that Mikumo likes to visit. Then he'll owe me and hopefully give me back my knives. I hope, at least. I hate wasting tranq darts when I can just hit them with the blunt end of a knife. I hopped down onto an alley and shucked off my vigilante costume. I then hid it behind an obscenely heavy dumpster, which I hoped would be a good enough deterrent that no one would find it and then try and steal it. With that done, I shot off a quick text to Mikumo telling him what I'm going and to give me my fucking knives back in return. In around 30 minutes I had arrived at the cat cafe and was sitting down at a table. It was just in time too, because my vision faded to black not long after. I looked around quietly, never knowing what shitstorm Yamikumo would leave me in, but was pleasantly surprised to see that, as far as I could tell, it was just a normal cat cafe. Wild, I murmured under my breath. I pulled out my phone and saw a couple texts from the Alter Association and a few from Shinso. Flicking the Alter group chat, I laughed out loud at Yami's text. As if, you being nice once does not mean that you aren't a total D most of the time. Not that I've ever actually met you. That's a weird thought. I mentally shrugged. Still not unhiding your knives though. Vaguely concerned. Amethyst, so ... what's up? Amethyst, that was lame. Amethyst, I haven't slept for a week and I feel like my conversations are really showing that. Amethyst, why were you out at 3 in the morning anyway? Amethyst, I was a bit busy to ask that but not I'm intrigued. Amethyst, like I know why I was out but why were you? Amethyst, hello. Amethyst, huh. I'd have thought you'd be awake. Doesn't exist, I am. Amethyst, am I supposed to ignore the fact that it's like exactly 3 in the morning? Amethyst, again. Amethyst, every time we meet it's all way around 3. I cringed. When you say it like that it does sound very suspicious. Time for a leap of faith then. Doesn't exist. That's really complicated actually. Doesn't exist. Nothing bad though. Amethyst, doesn't exist. I'm actually at the cat cafe where we met the first time. Come here and I'll explain. Doesn't exist. If you don't have anything else to do, of course. Amethyst, I'm an insomniac. Amethyst, I'll be there. As soon as I read the text I wanted to bash my head through the table. Almost did too. Instead I was satisfied with putting it into my hands and having the start of a breakdown. Why did I do that? Why did I do that? Why on the RTH did I do that? It's a secret for a reason. I have no proof. Oh shit, I fucked up. Hello? My head whipped up at the speed of light to see a tired purple boy in front of me. How the fuck did you get here so fast? He shrugged. That's fair. Sit down I guess. Actually no, just leave, it was a stupid idea. Hurt flashed through the boy's eyes and I immediately backtracked. Or sit down. Anything's fine. But if you choose to sit down you have to keep an open mind. Okay. Shinso warily nodded his head, but I counted it as a win. As soon as he was sitting, I started talking. Okay, so you know sentient Quirk's right. I didn't wait for any confirmation before continuing on. So basically imagine having 3 of them. But they aren't creatures. They're people. Different mindsets, memories, habits, all of that. Or at least I think we're all different. Ugh, not the point. Anyway, these people, there are 3 of them by the way, have specific times that they come out. For example, 3 in the morning to 8 in the morning. That's my time slot. Not even the, for lack of a better word, original or host can keep consciousness beyond his time frame. So yeah, Shinso's mouth was hanging open. So, 4 people share a body. I nod. And 3 of those people were created by Quirks, you being one of them. I nod again. And you're only awake from 3 in the morning to 8 in the morning. That's correct. How does that work? Legally. I laugh. First they would have to know we exist. Shinso's jaw, which I didn't know was possible, dropped even more. As far as anyone knows, Midoriya Izuku's quirk is memory loss. Midoriya Izuku. That's the original, right? Shinso got a contemplative look on his face. I wasn't quite sure if I liked it. Yeah, I was practically whispering at this point. I'm Akatani Mikumo, obviously. Then there's Yamikumo and Deku. So you do really not exist. Wild, I'm friends with an imaginary person. Shinso froze. Not that you're imaginary just because of the whole quirk thing. I was just talking about legality and all that. Then he got contemplative again. So you actually have no idea how you got covered in blood and just lied to me. A purple eyebrow was raised in my direction. I just burst out laughing. Obviously not the reaction Shinso expected, if his expression was anything to go off of. Sorry, that's just not where I thought you were going to immediately think. And I have some idea, but yeah, I lied. Said eyebrow was raised higher. The conversation after that was surprisingly easygoing. Shinso didn't seem to care at all that I was a quirk. Not that I like thinking of myself as a quirk, but scientifically, that's what I am. Soon, though, I had to go home. Shinso, the gentleman he was, asked to walk me home. A little while later we had to part ways. This is my stop. Thanks for everything. And for keeping an open mind. He shrugged. Everything you said was scientifically possible. And why wouldn't I believe you? It connected a lot of dots. I laughed again, and, in a spur-of-the-moment decision, kissed him on the cheek. It still means a lot. He turned pinker than I thought people could be. And I laughed as I walked into my apartment, waving goodbye. The apartment was surprisingly quiet. And I soon found a note that said Inko would be out for the next week. This has been a good day. Midoriya, my boy, your time has finally come. You have completed all and more than was expected from you and have gained enough power to accept my quirk. I am proud of you. I woke up to see that I was standing on top of a large pile of trash with All Might, in his hero form, smiling at me. Mikumo must have finished it. He probably hated it, but he finished. I owe him so much. I slid down the makeshift tower and started to jump around in a circle. I did it. The day is finally here. Just in time too. The entrance exam is in 1 hour. All Might boomed and I felt the blood drain from my face. The entrance exam is in 1 hour. That's not enough time to get used to a completely new quirk. All Might just laughed at my expression and ruffled my hair. The action almost made me fall over, which made sense seeing as I had probably been working since dawn to finish. Well, I don't think it would be a good idea to even try to activate until necessary. The dangers of the quirk are quite a lot, and I would hate for you not to be able to take the entrance exam due to injury. All Might explained and then plucked a hair from his head. Now, eat this. Just to confirm, you are talking about the hair, right? I stopped myself from taking a step away from the hair offered to me, but the impulse was strong. Yes, you see, one for all can only be passed to the next generation through DNA. And eating hair is the easiest way to achieve that. So eat it quick. We must make sure one for all has enough time to reform to fit your DNA so you'll be able to use it in the entrance exam. Or are you saying that I might not be able to use it during the entrance exam? I eyed the hair with distaste and finally gave in and stepped away from it. The possibility is increasing with each passing second that you haven't eaten it. I urge you to digest it quickly. All Might shoved the hair in my face and I forced myself to not flinch away. You have to do this. This is your best chance to achieve your dreams. All you have to do is eat this hair. I shot out my hand, grabbed the hair, and shoved it down my throat. The texture made me want to throw up, but I made sure to swallow it. That's my boy. Now you should be off to UA before you're late. It was then that I realized the time, and in an instant I shot off towards the train station. OMG it's UA, 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 OMG it's UA. My brain was repeating that sentence over and over as I tried not to have a heart attack through pure joy. I gripped my backpack tightly and thanked the gods that Mikumo had enough foresight to bring that to the beach. I really owed him a lot. I was so caught up in my thoughts and the overwhelming awe of the school I was finally entering that I didn't notice the brick that was slightly sticking out of the ground. My foot caught on the edge, and before I could realize what happened, I was heading straight towards the ground. However, instead of splatting, two things happened. 1. My body contorted into a flip to try and catch itself, and 2. A hand slapped my back and soon I was spinning in midair. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were going to catch yourself. I'll let you down now. The sweet girl clapped her hands together and I landed silently on the ground. How did I know how to do that? No, it's fine. Thanks for helping me. I muttered back to her and she smiled. I smiled back. Without further ado, the girl turned on her heel and marched towards the building with more determination than I've ever had in my life. At that moment, a hand clamped down on my shoulder and I stiffened, a squeak coming out of my mouth. Oi, Izuku. Right behind me was Kaken. If you really want your nose broken that badly, I'm sure I can help you out. I wasn't going to fall on my face, Kaken. I glare at him. In fact, I was in the middle of doing, well, something to break my fall. Not quite sure how. He just stared at me as if nothing I was saying was making any sense. It probably wasn't. Whatever, let's go. Kaken dragged me into the building where we got our identification and information cards, and then we both plopped down in seats next to each other. Welcome, listeners. You should have your ID card by now, so before we go over the practical exam, you had decided to first have you take the written. All you have to do is take and test. But don't worry, there will be someone there to answer any questions you have about it. Your card should tell you all the information you need for this part, so please make your way over to the designated room. Present Mike screamed into the microphone, which resulted in far too much noise. I barely resisted clamping my hands over my ears or screaming a million questions about his quirk in return. Instead, I just got up and made my way to where I was supposed to go. As soon as everyone was sitting in their seats, a scruffy pro hero handed out the tests, and I immediately began to scribble in my answers. Taking tests like this was one of the reasons I was thankful to only be awake during school. However, it also had a downside. I wasn't able to study out of school, so I didn't know the more intricate details of some of the things I was asked. Not that it mattered much. I was pretty confident that I had gotten enough right by the time I was forced to turn in my test. A little, for lack of a better word, quirk I have is that I never turn in an important test until the last moment. It might just be paranoia, but you never know what you'll get wrong if you rush. Once everyone turned it in, the pro hero ushered us out of the room and back into the auditorium where Present Mike was waiting. Hello, little listeners. Can I get a yeah? Present Mike's face fell a little when no one responded, but he bounced back with even more energy, which was a little unfortunate for anyone who didn't want hearing damage. Anyway, here's the details of the practical exam. The hero dissolved into a flutter of explanation, and I tried to infer as much as I could from it, but there didn't seem to be that many hidden details. Excuse me, you seem to have left out the final robot. That's very unexpected and disappointing coming from a prestigious school such as yourself. Also, you, the plain-looking one, your muttering is very disruptive and you should try and keep it to yourself. Me. Oops. Yes, don't worry about that last robot. In fact, I was just about to get to that fact. The last robot is a zero-pointer. You'll gain nothing from defeating it. And, if we're being honest, you should probably just run if you see it," Present Mike explained, thankfully at a lower volume than before. "Now, please make your way to your assigned arenas." Signs lit up and I got up, wished Bakugo good luck, and made my way to where I was supposed to be. Start. Before my mind could even recognize the command, I had already started to sprint towards the opening gate. "Okay, use what you can to destroy some robots. You got this." My mini pep talk worked and I sped up even more than before. Soon enough, the first robot came into view and its glowing red eye locked onto me. Without thinking, it's like I have muscle memory I don't remember gaining. I threw myself to the side to dodge the laser and kept running towards it. Sadly, before I could hit it, a sparkly laser ripped through it. "Thank you for distracting it." A blonde boy smiled and ran off. No, I was so close. Though, I'm not exactly sure what I was going to do. It's not like I'm even sure how to activate All for One. He has good reflexes, but seems surprised each time he uses them. Aizawa commented while watching the multiple screens showing the exam. That's not surprising actually," Nezu replied, and many of the teachers in the room turned to face him in surprise. "Midoriya Izuku, Quirk, memory loss. Memory loss. That's a surprising one. How does he expect to pass with that?" Midnight commented and turned back to the screen. "There's no way he will. But that Quirk, he probably had forgotten most of what was on the written exam, and there is a possibility that he could forget what he's doing in this exam. He's a liability," Flad King retorted, but Nezu only chuckled in reply. "I think he'll surprise us." A rodent took a sip of his tea and turned his attention back to the cameras. "In fact, this is the best time to find out if he will." The principal brought his paw down on a large red button and chaos broke out. That's a big robot." The zero loomed over my head and in front of me students ran the other way. There is no way I'm passing this exam. I've only gotten 7 points. However, those 7 were well deserved. I managed to trick 2 two-pointers into running into each other and stabbed a 3-pointer with a metal rod. Not my best work, but I was too afraid to use one for all right now. "Help, help." A quiet voice sounded from almost right in front of the giant robot. "Don't tell me." I quickly ran forward to try and get a better view. I knew it. Someone is stuck under the rubble. Again, my legs pulled me forwards without me telling them to, and I knew it was time to finally power up my trump card. Before the girl could get crushed. Smash. I channeled the power into my legs and shot up into the air. "Holy shit. What was that?" Present Mike screamed as he watched the plain-looking boy streak into the air. "I thought you said his quirk was memory loss," Aizawa questioned, and Nezu smiled in reply. The energy it takes to store memories had to go somewhere. Although it seems his body isn't quite prepared for it. As you can see, his legs are quite broken. At this point, Midoriya had hit the zero-pointer and was now falling back towards the ground. "Yeah, but did no one see how he destroyed our best robot with one punch?" the cockatoo hero screeched. That is something else," Flad King replied and seemed embarrassed, seeing as he first thought the boy would fail badly. "It truly is," Nezu agreed and then started to laugh maniacally. "I'm going to die. This is not how I expected to die." I stared at the ground as I careened towards it with my 2 broken legs and 1 broken arm. At least I didn't lose them. 3 seconds from ground. 2 on a hand slapped me and stopped my train of thought. It was a bit late though. My body still crashed into the ground, but it didn't cause as much damage as it would have. Once I hit, I then bounced off and was floating around an inch from the ground. "Release," came a voice to my left, and then a vomiting sound came after. I fell down the remaining inch and groaned into the concrete. "Thank you," I muttered, and then black overtook me. For once not the black that meant disappearing to the back of my mind. This was just passing out. "Oh, you're awake? Good. That was very reckless, young man. I do hope you won't continue to use your quirk in such a self-destructive manner." I blinked as the small, old woman walked away. "Wait, is that recovery girl?" "I agree, young Midoriya, but you displayed great power. You have a strong heroic spirit." I looked at the weird scarecrowish man beside me. Not having a clue who the poor man was, I replied as kindly as I could. "Thank you, sir. That means a lot to me." I smiled at him and relaxed a bit when he smiled widely back. Attempting to sit up, I moved my arms to try to prop myself up, only to find that not only was one of them in a cast, and from the feel of it, it was entirely shattered too. I was interrupted from my efforts by a fussing recovery girl pushing me back down. The short woman ushered whoever the tall man was out of the room before turning back to face me. "I couldn't heal you all the way due to the extent of your injuries, so lay back down before you hurt yourself again. Now, take a few of these so I can heal you the rest of the way." I took the bag of what looked like gummy candies from her hand and plopped a few in my mouth, chewing happily on the nice, fruity flavor. "Thank you, ma'am. If you don't mind." "Where am I?" I cringed at how stupid I sounded. "Ah yes, Nezu and Toshinori mentioned this. You're in the medical wing of UA, honey. You just got finished taking the hero course entrance exam." I blanched at her. "That's really not good. What happens if they matched my DNA to any of the crime scenes or something ... for some reason?" I guess I'd be in custody by now if they had though. That's great, I ground out, trying not to seem weirdly unnerved by her comment. She smiled before kissing my hand and removing the cast. I sighed at the feeling of air hitting the overheating arm and moved my wrist around. Thanks, ma'am. We talked for a bit as she finished her checkup before releasing me. Walking through the halls of the UA was surreal, but I couldn't help but dread whatever was going to come out of it. Hearing my phone ping, I took it out only to blanch at the time. How was I asleep for an hour and a half past my normal wake-up? Rushing to the entrance of the school, I instantly noticed Katsuki's blonde spikes. Oh, he's going to kill me. Sucking in a breath to make myself feel a little better, I put on a bright smile and walked up to him. Where the hell were you, you damn nerd? I'd fucking die for your broccoli ass, but if you ever disappear like that again, I will end you. I sweat dropped at his words and quickly tried to reconcile. Hey, it wasn't my fault my arm and legs got shattered, I replied, waving my arms frantically. They what? Oh shit. And no, really, it's fine. I'm good as new cats, squeaky clean. All healed up and ready to go. That seemed to calm him down as he sighed and grabbed my hand. I smiled at him and followed as we headed off. You're coming to my house. I'm not letting you out of my sight, dork. We chatted about his exam as we walked. I sighed at the warmth of a happy Katsuki and leaned into his side, prompting him to wrap an arm around me. I was nearly asleep standing up by the time we made it to his place. I was woken from my daydreaming by Katsuki's usual gruff greeting to his parents before being carried upstairs. Wrapping my arms around his shoulders as to not fall, I searched his searing gaze for the situation. I should have expected being dropped on a bed and crawled over, but no one ever really expects that, do they? Deku, you fuck, why did you lose the game? Bakugo screeched in my ear. And in an instant I launched off the bed I was sitting on and was against the wall nearest to me. Sorry. I noticed that I was holding a video game controller in my left hand and my right hand was empty of a knife, even though I had tried to grab one. That's weird. I always sneak a knife into my clothing so I can have it at any time. Wait, this isn't my normal clothing. It's a tracksuit. What the fuck? Oh, hi Yamikumo. Didn't realize it was that late already. Bakugo paused the game he and Deku had been playing and turned to face me. What the fuck am I wearing? I asked while stretching the sleeves of the weird-ass tracksuit. The shitty standard clothes for the entrance exam for UA. Bakugo explained. That would make sense. But that also means I have no weapons on me. Unless I frantically patted my hair for any of the possible poisoned hair clips I sometimes put in them. Bakugo stared with thinly veiled as Yamikumo going insane vibes as I looked through my hair for a good 2 minutes trying to find anything. Nothing, nada, no weapons on me. Ugh, my anxiety does not appreciate that fact. So wait, the entrance exam was today? I asked once I had finished my mini mental breakdown. How do you think Izuku did? How the fuck should I know? I've only talked to Deku. Bakugo retorted and I sighed. Oh well, I bet he did fine. Well, as fun as this is, I should probably get going. Need to change out of this horror and into something that contains stabby tools. The last part I muttered to myself as I walked over to Bakugo's window and began to open it. Why the fuck are you going out my window? There's a door not too far away, dumbass. A hand grabbed my collar and yanked me away from the partially open window. Oh right, doors. God, I haven't used those in so long. They're so basic. I trudged towards the door out of the room and sighed dramatically when I opened it. Why are you sighing, you fucker? It's just opening a fucking door, dipshit. Bakugo growled at me and I felt a little bit happier because of the pain I was causing him. It's because it's a door, Bakugo. I bemoaned. Oh well, you common folk could never understand me anyway. Who are you calling common? Get the fuck out of my room. Explosions cackled behind me and I took that as my quay and got the hell out of his quirk range. I silently made my way through the rooms and out of the apartment. Even though I wasn't even in vigilante mode, I could never break the habit of walking quietly. Why, you might ask? Well, my friends, it's all thanks to our favorite friend, paranoia. Plus, it's fun to sneak up on people and scare them. Since Bakugo and I lived so close together, it only took a few minutes for me to get to my apartment. This time, I decided to go into it my favorite way. I walked into the alley next to the building and prepared to scale the wall. It's harder without gloves, but soon enough I had dug my fingers into sufficient handholds. With that done, I scuttled up the cracked side of the building. It was slower going than I was used to, but I was also out of practice going into my room from this direction. Usually I came down from the roof. Soon enough, I gripped the window seal and shimmied the greased window open. In an instant I slithered into the room and closed the window behind me. I stopped for a second, trying to listen for Inko, before I realized that she was gone. What kind of woman just leaves her son for days? A bitch, that's who. I feel bad for Deku. He's the one who has to deal with her the most. Anyway, time to get out of these clothes. I opened my closet and threw an outfit onto my bed. Without further ado I undressed and was about to put on my new shirt when I saw a bruise on my neck. How did I not feel this before? Now that I think about it, everything about me hurts, but I don't think in a broken bone way or even a slammed into a wall way. I furrowed my eyebrows and twisted my neck farther to get a better view of the bruise. Wait a second, that's not a bruise. That's a hickey. What the fuck DEKU? D.I.D you seriously fuck BAKUGOU? I paused for a second as I realized where most of the pain was located. Never mind, Bakugo fucked you. You know what, I'm not gonna think about it. As far as I know, it didn't happen. I could be making it up. Anyway, onto a different topic to think about so I don't mentally scar myself. I hurriedly threw on the new clothes and shoved a poisoned hair clip into my hair. Oh, I feel so much better with a stabby toy on me. So, I don't really have anything planned for tonight. Wait a minute, the cameras I placed a while ago. Those need to be checked. And I need to find my knives. Mikumo's a little bitch. I got up and started dumping everything on the ground. In the first few minutes I found 3 of my knives in the obvious places. Soon I moved on to the trickier stuff. Mikumo, what the fuck possessed you to put a knife on the ceiling fan? If it had been any warmer, Deku or Izuku could have hurt themselves when a fucking knife comes flying at them. I sighed once I realized there was no way I was going to get an answer and put the knife back in its sheath. An hour later I gave up on finding my one missing knife. Ugh, now I don't even have enough time to go and fight crime. This day sucks. Well, not as much as Deku might have. I paused for a second. Why the fuck did I put that image in my head? Beep beep beep. I woke up to notifications from my phone. That's strange, I don't set an alarm. Maybe it's the group chat. I picked it up and nope, they were not from the group chat. Vaguely concerned. Amethyst, good morning. Amethyst, I think. Amethyst, did I get the time right? Doesn't exist. Yeah, actually. Just woke up. Amethyst, cool. Doesn't exist. Hold on a sec, I had a stupid idea. Amethyst, quietly, I opened the door and looked out into the hallway. Inko's door was open. That's strange but good for me. Caring less about stealth, I looked through the entire house until I was sure Inko was gone. Fantastic. Plopping myself on the couch, I pulled my phone back out. Doesn't exist. Wanna come over? Amethyst, to the cafe. Doesn't exist. Nope. My house. Gimme a sec, I'll send you my address. It was only after I had sent it that I realized what a stupid idea this was. Chucking my phone onto the other side of the couch, I marched back into my room. Shit. Why the ever-loving fuck would I do that? You know what? Fuck this. I have an eye to paint and a catastrophe to ignore. The cat painting that I was doing for the contest was long turned in, and I was really proud of it. Now I was just waiting for the results and, hopefully, money. In the meantime, I started another forest painting, so I brought out my greens and a sponge brush to start the trees. It was very relaxing work, and I soon got lost in it. Ding dong. What the fuck? I muttered, wiping paint all over my face as I tried to get my hair out of my vision. Was that the doorbell? I felt like a hermit as I walked over to the door, paint all over my apron, face, and hands. Suspiciously, I opened the door to become face to face with Shinzo. Oh, right. I did invite him over. I didn't think you'd actually come over. He just gave me a look. Oh, yeah, come on in. He did, walking past me as if he owned the place. You didn't respond to any of my texts. Still dumbfounded, I closed the door on autopilot and turned towards him. Well, in my defense, I had a little bit of a mental breakdown about the fact that I invited you to my house. He gave me a strange look. Literally no one has ever known I exist. Ever. I only really know 4 people, including you. Huh. He then gave me a quick once-over and raised an eyebrow. How's the painting going anyway? Not that it's something I know about. I'll show you. I almost skipped towards my room and opened it up with great enthusiasm. Don't mind the All Might merch, it's not mine. Shinzo, almost trepidatiously, entered and his gaze immediately zeroed in on the practically finished painting in the middle. That's yours? Yep, although I don't know if that was a compliment or an insult. He just kept staring. Compliment. Definitely compliment. Now he turned towards me. How? With a lot of time and nothing to do. And years of practice. Don't forget the years of practice. Now, sit there, I pointed towards my bed. And be quiet until I finish it. It won't take long, don't worry. Without waiting to see if he followed my directions, I picked my brushes back up and took the next 5 minutes to add the finishing touches. In Viola, I'm pretty sure it's voila, not the instrument. I shrugged. So, did you try out for UA? I asked as I started walking towards the kitchen to clean my brushes. I could hear Shinzo following me. Yeah, actually, on recommendation. He sounded kind of sheepish about it. That statement certainly made me pause my washing to look back at him. Recommendation. How do you do that? Well, you kind of have to have some connections with pro heroes. Now he really sounded sheepish, hand coming back to rub his neck. Oh, right. Your parents. That's it. He startled as I whipped around, pointing my brushes at him. You know pro heroes, right? Besides your parents, of course. At his hesitant nod, I barreled on. Do you know of a guy, maybe retired, That is really tall, gaunt, almost skeleton-looking guy with blonde hair that goes like this. I curled my fingers and put them on the top of my head in a crude imitation of trainer guy's hair things, and coughs blood. Shinso looked increasingly baffled as my description went on, but answered anyway. Literally the only thing that sounds familiar to me in that entire description was the hair, but that's just cause it reminded me of All Might. "A lead," I shout, obviously startling my friend. I quickly put the brushes on a paper towel and ran to my room. "No, not a lead. That is not the description of All Might at all." Shisno calls after me. I studiously ignore him and bring up a video of All Might in an interview. Sometime during that process, I hear Shisno stop behind me and sigh. "You're seriously doing this?" He sighs again at my nod. "Hello everyone. I am here. Well, this is certainly Chich. Now I just need to listen and see if the voices match." Honestly, for the first few minutes I can't tell. The reporter drones on and All Might does his best to answer questions. Shinso is obviously unimpressed. Then, about 2 minutes in, the show allows people to call in. "Hi, my name is Nakamoto Daichai. What's your question, young Nakamoto?" All Might boomed. I immediately paused the video, and rewinded again. Holy shit, I've been training under All Might. Or well, Izuku has. I put my face in my hands. How the fuck? Why the fuck? And why did he look like that? I have so many questions. Are you sure? Cause, again. That description and well, the symbol of peace don't exactly match. Unsure. I'm getting some water. Seems legit. With that I got up and made my way to the kitchen, again. My thoughts wandered while I filled up the glass. How could All Might be my teacher? His voice is the exact same though, and his hair, and his height, but the dude's a skeleton. Who coughs blood? The glass quickly filled up and I put it on the counter, making a glass for Shinso since I needed more time to think. His mannerisms are pretty much the same though, along with his voice. I already said that, didn't I? Not the point. It deserves to be said twice. Or thought, rather. Okay, fuck this, I'm getting nowhere. I'll think about it later. I turned around to see that Shinso had gotten the memo, and was sitting down with the glass of water I made him. He started to put it down on the wood table and I panicked, throwing a coaster at him to put it on. Except, it didn't really work that way. I watched, with mounting horror, as my arm sparked green and the coaster shot out of my hand like a bullet, flying into the wall next to Shinso's head. Only the half closest to me was sticking out. I looked towards Shinso, and he looked just as horrified as I was, maybe a little more due to the fact that it was his head that almost got split open. I can explain. Actually, no I can't. I have no idea how that just happened, and if I actually have a quirk then my whole life is a lie and holy shit, what am I supposed to know? I didn't even realize I was hyperventilating until Shinso put a hand on my shoulder. I had no idea when he walked over to me, but the touch was calming enough I was able to get my breathing and thoughts under control. "Relax, Mikumo. This sounds really weird to say, but I'm sure you're still a quirk. I have no idea how you almost decapitated me, but one experience doesn't change a whole life of other, vaguely contradicting experiences. I think." Shinso still looked startled, but concern was starting to take over. "Now, let's just take the coaster out of the wall and wait for one of the other alters to figure out what the fuck is going on." I huffed out a laugh and nodded. "Yeah, I'll send out a text. I'm just the artist, you know. I'm not cut out for the weird quirk analysis or whatever the hell needs to happen to figure out whatever the hell needs to happen." Yeah, I looked at the clock and it turned out that it was only 4:30. While I was looking, Shinso noticed something on my neck. "Did you bruise your neck or something?" He looked closer to see. Yes, that was a bruise. "Maybe. How the hell do you maybe bruise your neck?" "It's your neck." "Oh yeah, my bad." I just laughed at him. I had a feeling he would forget I wasn't a standard person pretty frequently. Well, I would too in his position, so I can't really get mad about that. Shinso, I hate to be rude, but I think you should get going. I would hate for your parents to notice you were missing, and I think I'm going to go to sleep." "You should too, probably." He looked hurt, but masked it well. "Actually, I told my parents I was going out. Also, you don't sleep." I shrugged. "I just threw a coaster into a wall. I'm kind of done with my day. Really, I don't mean to be rude, but I am mentally exhausted and well, yeah, that's pretty much it. Plus, you really do need to sleep." The hurt look faded. "Yeah, you're probably right." I gave him a look. "Okay, definitely right. I'll get going. Thank you for having me, Akatani." "Shinso, I almost decapitated you. Mikumo is fine. And I'll maybe see you tomorrow." "Sure, see ya." I walked Shinso to the door and waved goodbye. Then, after I texted the group chat about the incident, I made good on my promise and flopped onto my bed, going to sleep almost immediately. My results should come today. I hope I got in, but I probably didn't. I didn't get a single villain point, and I doubt my score on written was enough to get me into the hero course. My best bet would be general education, and I don't think it would be too much of a stretch to say I'm guaranteed a spot there. I am pretty positive I aced the exam after all. I was sitting at my computer, watching hero fights, but it was obvious that I wouldn't be able to pay attention. I hadn't been able to focus on anything since I woke up. For the 2 hours I'd been awake, I'd either been packing, watching videos, or checking for mail. I wonder how dorms are going to work. It's so cool that UA has dorms though. That means the students can take full use of all they have to offer. Although, I'm a bit worried about Deku. I hope he doesn't give away that he's not me, but honestly, he'll probably avoid my classmates. From what I've seen in the last few seconds before I disappear, he hasn't had the best experience with them. Well, I hope he gives them a chance at least. While I was talking to myself, the video ended and I thunked my head onto my desk. I give up, I'm too stressed. I'm going to go see if the mail came. I picked myself off the desk and rushed out of my room. It was through conscious effort that I was able to slow myself down enough to not disturb my neighbors as I flew down the stairs. Soon enough, I was in front of the mail slot for my apartment building. Please have mail, please have mail, please have mail. I begged under my breath and then ripped open the slot. My eyes widened as I locked onto a giant envelope with a UA stamp on the front. It's here, a whisper yelled. My hand shot out and grabbed onto the suspiciously heavy envelope. I then raced back up the stairs and flew into my room in record time. Once there, I ripped open the letter and a small black circle fell out. Is that a bomb? I screeched and flew away from the mysterious circle. I then screamed again when it started to light up. It is I, All Might, the hologram proclaimed as I slowly sat back on my chair. All Might, what is he doing on a UA announcement? I wondered. Now, young Midoriya, you passed with flying colors on the written test. However, you didn't get a single villain point in the practical. With that sentence, I felt all my hopes and dreams slither out of my body. However, what kind of hero school would this be if it was all about defeating villains? Instead, there are rescue points which allowed you, Midoriya Izuku, to be accepted into Class 1 of the hero course. I got in. Thank you for the ride. I told Ms. Bakugo as I got out of her car. The entire Bakugo family had come over to my apartment to find out if I also got in, and once they learned that I had, they offered to take me and my stuff to UA. I had never been happier that I had already stress-packed everything. It was no problem. Masaru panicked and got a bigger truck than we needed for all of Katsuki's stuff, so I'm glad we could use it for you. Mitsuki smiled, something Midoriya hadn't seen very often. By the look on Kaken's face, neither had he. The Bakugo parents soon got very busy with starting to unload the truck. While they were turned around, Kaken side-eyed me and asked, how the fuck did you get into UA? I mean, with the fact that it was Gotham robots and you couldn't have any equipment. I side-eyed him back. Didn't you see? All of my points were rescue points. Why would I care what kind of points you got, you shitty nerd? Sadly, I can tell his suspicion has not decreased. But you didn't know that, so you wouldn't have been paying enough attention to people to get all 60 rescue points. Didn't you just say you weren't looking at my scores? I'm sure he could see me panicking, but I didn't really care. It wasn't as if I didn't know I was going to have to explain my new quirk to him sometime. But now really wasn't it? I don't know, Kaken, it was a kind of a blur. But if I remember more, I'll be sure to tell you. Please get the hint. Please. He looked away. Yeah, fine. I'm holding you to that. The conversation ended just in time for the two of us to be told that everything was ready to be brought into the dorms. Suddenly, a thought occurred to me. Shit, what's going to happen when everyone starts asking questions to my alters or Kaken about my quirk? It's certainly a strange one, so they most likely will. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Bakugo. By the way, the energy my brain doesn't use to keep my memories goes to giving me super strength. A few seconds later, I could tell he had gotten the text because his incredulous look was burning into the side of my head. Yeah, I'd be doing that too if I got a text like that. Give me a second, I yelled. I'll explain later. Opening the Alters group chat, I almost choked seeing the text from Mikumo. He used the quirk, but I don't have any broken bones ... Still, yeesh, what a way to find out. Original, sorry about that. Original, long story short, I got a quirk from All Might, specifically, his quirk, that gives me super strength. Original, but please be careful guys and don't use it. I broke both my legs and an arm trying to. Original, I'll keep you posted about it though. As soon as I put my phone away, I saw two people walk out of the dorms and towards us. A girl with short brown hair and a guy with bright red. They were both smiling and waving, so I shyly waved back. Hey, I'm Kirishima and this is Uraraka. We got here early and are already unpacked, so we'd love to help you guys. The girl, Uraraka, nodded with enthusiasm at his statement. Sure, I'm Midoriya Izuku, and this is Bakugo Katsuki. Nice to meet you. I really had no idea what to do in this situation. Nice to meet you too, Uraraka replied, before walking towards the truck and tapping some of the boxes with her hands. I watched as she hit one on the side of it and it flew into the others with speed it shouldn't have possessed. She shrieked and ran after it, catching it before it hit anything important. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. As I looked around, I could see that the boxes she had touched were, slowly but surely, floating upwards. Afloat Quirk. No, that makes no sense for how that box ran into the others. Which means zero gravity. That's why she was so careful to touch them on the top. That way they couldn't bounce away. Although it did make them bounce off the concrete, but with far less momentum. That's so cool. Oh, thanks. The girl turned to me while holding the box and shrieked, "You're the guy who saved me." Oh, yeah. How are you doing, by the way? I rubbed the back of my neck in embarrassment and I felt the glare Kakin was giving me increase. How am I doing? How are you doing? Last I saw you, both your legs and one arm were paste. Uraraka screeched, and I flinched from the glare Kakin was giving me as it slowly burned a hole through my head. Well, let's just say I'm happy Recovery Girl was there. It's all better now, I replied and picked up 2 of my boxes. I'm going to go put these up. It was nice meeting you. Sure dude, I'll help you. It wouldn't be manly not to, seeing as I've already put up all of my stuff. The redhead, Kirishima, also grabbed 2 boxes and Uraraka rushed over to help us as well. With 1 touch to each box it became much easier to hold them. Thanks Uraraka, I exclaim. Kakin, I'll be back soon to help with your stuff. You better nerd. We have a lot to talk about. Bakugo growled and then picked up some of his stuff and together we made our way into the dorms. It took a bit of back and forth, but within an hour I had mostly everything unpacked and everything else was already in the room. Which was good, because in the middle of putting an All Might figurine on the dresser I blacked out. I rubbed my eyes as they refocused, blinking as that only managed to make them blurrier, and displaced my contacts. Once they had managed to focus properly with extensive blinking I took in the star-spangled room around me. Did we move to America or something? What's with all the All Might merch, yickies? I cringed at the sheer amount of hero posters and action figures and dropped the one I had in my hand on the shelf next to me, not feeling motivated to complete whatever unpacking was left. As I didn't really have much of my own stuff, I slipped out of my room. Walking down the short hall, paying little attention to the name plaques, I could hear talking coming up the staircase that sat at the farthest wall. Slipping downstairs quietly, I saw a group of 5 kids that seemed to be introducing themselves in the middle of a weird hotel lobby-ish place. Not wanting to bother interacting with anyone my age, I made my way back upstairs and tried searching for Katsuki. It wasn't my lucky day though, as the moment I stepped back into the stairwell I was spotted and a kid with red hair started calling Izuku's name. Cringing lightly, I met him in the middle of the stairs. "Midoriya, dude, how is unpacking going?" he asked. He was sporting a shark-like grin and from a closer distance I could tell he'd just dyed his hair. Good. It's good. I'm not sure if you know yet, but my quirk sort of makes my memory faulty. I swear I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but what's your name again? I scratched my cheek in an attempt to make myself seem less of a threat. Oh, geez, that must suck. I had no idea. I laughed awkwardly. I'm Kirishima Ijiro. If you need any help with anything, let me know. He seemed good-natured enough, meek even, though I could tell with the way he was puffing out his chest he was trying to seem heroic or something. Do you know where Bakugo Katsuki's room might be? I asked. Oh sure, top floor, 3rd door. I thanked him and we waved goodbyes. I sighed as soon as he was out of earshot, glad to not have to put on a mask any longer. Making my way up the stairs I tried to consider where the hell I might be. Due to Katsuki being here and the actions of Kirishima, the most likely guess was UAS Hero Dorms, but how on earth would Izuku have managed that? I stopped in front of Katsuki's room and confirmed the directions by checking the nameplate before opening the door and slipping inside. Closing it behind me, Katsuki was sitting on his bed leaning against the wall and looked up when I walked in. He checked the time on his phone and paused the game he was playing before giving me a small smile and scooching over. I took a seat next to him and slid back, leaning my head on his shoulder. Katsuki, I asked. MMH. Katsuki opened his game again, but I could tell he was listening. Where are we? He choked a little before realizing that no one had thought to tell me we had gotten in or that we were moving out of the house. UA dorms. Izuku managed to get into class 1 with some super strength quirk that I'm pretty sure All Might gave him somehow. He responded, giving me a look to gauge my reaction. Well darn, that'll put a wrench in my plans. I was hoping to up my game and go for that pervert math teacher that keeps watching me getting beaten up on the school camera tapes. Maybe I can convince the teachers here that my dad is in the hospital and I need to visit him after school every day or something. Thanks, Cats. I gave him my trademark grin, watching his ears turn pink, and snuggled into his side. I sat quietly, going over my plan in my head as he played his game. We were interrupted though when a knock sounded at the door. I sat up and called for the person to come in. The boy from before, Kirishima, poked his head in. Hey guys, just wanted to let you know we're making some snacks and we might play some icebreakers or put in a movie in a minute. Feel free to join us. He closed the door on his way out and we could hear him kick on the next door down. Wanna? I asked him. He sighed before nodding and getting up, offering me his hand. I grabbed it before getting up and following him back down to the common room. waving at Kirishima from down the hall as we left. So, what icebreaker do you have in mind? The obviously rich girl asked Kirishima. Well, truth or dare is obviously the most manly of games. Will you reveal yourself to the world, or will you do the unthinkable? Who knows? He said dramatically, tears falling from his eyes. Katsuki and I shared a look from where we sat together on the floor between two of the couches. Yeah, that sounds great. The girl responded. I just don't know if it's a good idea to push everyone so soon into our first meeting. What about 2 truths and a lie? Her idea was met by a unanimous agreement, leaving her blushing. Someone's insecure. Ew, I'll go first. Another girl who seemed to be entirely pink offered, jumping in her seat. Hi, my name is Mina Ashido. Okay, I practice modern dance. I went to middle school with Kirishima, and I dye my hair to match my skin tone. Okay, guess. She pointed to a boy with yellow hair who was raising his hand to guess. The last one. She nodded enthusiastically. We got halfway through the game when a teen with purple hair stumbled down the stairs. What's going on? He asked while rubbing his eyes. We're playing 2 truths and a lie to get to know each other. Idatenya exclaimed while he waved his hands through the air. It is important for heroes to know each other in order for everyone to work well together. The purple boy replied. You should join, Ashido shouted, but the team looked like he really didn't like the suggestion. However, moments later his face changed and he sighed. Sure, why not? Tired slouched over to an open spot in the circle and flopped onto the ground. Everyone didn't really know what to do with this new addition, but soon enough we started where we left off and the game was back to normal. The game continued for a few minutes, more kids introducing themselves, until finally a girl named Sue called on me. Okay, let's see. I need glasses to see, my mom is in Tokyo, and I'm gay. The last one prompted a few of the others to giggle. I caught the weird look the new kid was giving me, but tried to pretend it didn't exist. Glasses obviously. You're not wearing any. The bubbly brown-haired girl exclaimed and I shook my head. Idiots. Can't they see that would be my lie? Your mom isn't in Tokyo. A bird replied in a surprisingly human voice and I nodded. What a mad bouquet of darkness. Okay, Midoriya, your turn again. Hiro the frog croaked and I began to prepare my phrases in my mind. Got it? Okay. I've been bullied since age 4. I was almost killed by a sludge villain, and I once threw a lamp at Endeavor. I looked around at the shocked faces and held in a smirk. That should stump them for a little bit. Sludge villain, Yaoyorozu hesitantly offered up. Correct. Technically, though they didn't need to know that, Izuku was almost killed, not me. You threw a lamp at my father, Todoroki asked, faint surprise showing on his face. Yup. A pensive look overtook Half and Half's face. Well, that was enlightening, but how about we start something else? Kaminari proclaimed. I think we should do a movie marathon. Yeah, sounds manly. Kirishima agreed and soon everyone was getting ready to watch the chosen movie, Mila. I sat on the couch next to Kakin, and his arm soon snaked around my waist. I leaned into his side and watched as the movie began. I tensed a little as my brain slowly took in the unfamiliar sounds and smells around me. The arm wrapped around my waist squeezed in either warning or comfort, and then retracted. My eyes finally focused, and I noticed that a movie was playing on the screen in front of me with unknown people surrounding me. Is that Mulan? I've never actually seen it before, but I have seen random posts about it that I come across when trying to learn more about villains. Where am I? I whispered to Bakugo, who I had noticed was sitting next to me. Yue, Izuku actually got in. These fuckers are our new classmates, from Class 1A. Our first school day is tomorrow, by the way. Even though I had only asked one question, Bakugo answered all the ones that had been swirling around in my head. I tried to focus on the movie, and even ate some of the burnt popcorn in my lap, but my eyes could never focus on it. I wasn't used to being surrounded by unknown people with unknown quirks. It made my instincts go insane. Every being of my body was prepared for an attack, and it was only the fact that my brain knew they weren't a threat and that I had Bakugo to take them with me if they chose to attack that allowed me some semblance of chill. I gave up on focusing on the movie, which was a shame because I actually really did want to watch it, and pulled out my phone instead. I noticed I had a text from the Alter group chat and swiftly pulled it up. What the fuck? I whispered. Bakugo swung his head around to look at me, and I whispered back reassurance that everything was okay. I have a quirk, from All Might, which broke Izuku's arm and both legs. That bit is unfortunate, but I have a fucking useful quirk. I finally won't have to resort to jumping off of buildings to try and avoid Eraserhead. This is magical. With that new information, I put my phone away and leaned over to whisper in Bakugo's ear. Do you know if I can use the training buildings this late? I'm pretty sure it's a big fucking no on that one. I think there are even bots posted to alert teachers if we leave the dorms after curfew. He whispered back, and then stole some of the popcorn from the bowl in my lap. Do you know if they say which students have left? And if possible where they are stationed? I moved the bowl farther away from my childhood friend and take a handful for myself. No fucking clue and no fucking clue. Bakugo replied and I sighed a bit. Oh well, it was worth a try. Hey guys, Midoriya and Bakugo, can you try and keep the talking to a minimum? A blonde teen with a lighting symbol in black on his hair yelled, it's just about to get good. Oh shit, how does Izuku act? Oh, sorry. I rubbed the back of my neck in embarrassment. Well, not really, I just did that cause I think that's something that Izuku does. In response, the blonde guy just gives me a thumbs up and turns back to watch the movie. Okay, the best case scenario is that I can deprogram the bots and sneak out easily. I have to admit, that won't be easy. But there is also a possibility that if I code something that just has to be touching them to hack them, that Deku could do it for me in the daytime. Second best scenario is I can sneak out unnoticed. And even if I am, I could avoid the teachers and detection. That might be even more unlikely. One last question. I turned to Bakugo and he groaned but didn't complain, so I took that as a sign to continue. Who are our teacher? Well, fucking All Might for one. Well, that's not a good sign for me, and some hobo-looking dude called Aizawa Shouta. And that's even fucking worse. Eraserhead is my teacher. Ugh. I guess that means I'll never be able to escape without him either catching me or at least coming close. But I guess that could also be said about the symbol of peace. My only hope is to hack into the bots and security so that I will be able to leave unnoticed. God, I forgot how much I fucking love Mulan. The blonde and black-haired kid from before exclaimed, and I looked up to see that the movie had ended already. Kaminari. Language. A robot-looking dude sliced through the air using his hands, and I blinked in surprise at his actions. These are all weird people. Or at least that guy is. Although, there is a guy with like 6 arms and another with grapes on his head, so who knows? Ah, come on Ada. Chill out. A pink-skinned chick from next to Kaminari spoke up as she stretched out her arms above her head. You shouldn't curse on school property. It's bad form and disrespectful. The robot, Ada, continued, and a few people in the room seemed to agree with him. Okay, so now I know at least something about all of these people, even if I might never use it. Yeah guys, it's not manly. An obviously fake redhead exclaimed in between a weird elbow guy and a rich girl. A pretty boy with dual-colored hair. And a scar around his eye. I think that's a burn scar? No. A scar from boiling water. How did that happen? Stood up and began to make his way to the staircase. I'm going back to my room. I think all of you should probably go as well. With that, he turned and left. Aloof pretty boy who I think is also Endeavor's son. Damn, he must have led a hard life. Follow me. Bakugo huffed from next to me as he stood up. I did move to follow him, but I also sent him a confused look. You dumbass probably don't know where your room is, do you? So, follow me. Oh, right, I forgot about that. Moments like this make me glad Bakugo knows about everything. Without him here for me to depend on, I'd look like an idiot. After a few flights of stairs, Bakugo dropped me off at my room. I opened the door and took in the state of the room. There's a lot of All Might merch, but not as much as I expected. I bet that's because of Deku. Thanks Bakugo. Sleep well. The boy grunted in response and was soon out of my range of vision. With him gone, I closed the door to my room and began planning my next move. Well, this is certainly new. And by new I mean, where the fuck am I? Launching myself out of bed, I opened the door to my apparent room and saw a long hallway, filled with other doors to, what I assumed, other rooms. Is this some kind of motel? Or something? No, why would Izuku's room be that personalized then? What the hell is going on? Not sensing an immediate threat, I quietly but quickly walked down the stairs until I got to what looked like a common room. Nothing in it looked familiar to me at all until I got to the kitchen, and lo and behold, there's someone I know. Ooh, Shinso, where am I? I asked with poorly disguised panic. Oh, Akatani, I was just about to text you. We're in the dorms. I must have looked confused because he elaborated. UAS dorms. Were you not informed about this? I blink. Yeah. I think I might have gotten a text that UA was moving into dorms. It just caught me off guard. Wild. Wait, Midoriya got in. Good for him. I paused and looked around. The dorms looked just as I would have expected them to, if UAS wealth was any indication. Although, personally, the furniture looked a little too breakable, especially if teenagers with powerful quirks were going to live here. Okay, give me the lowdown. Who, what, when, where, why, how, all that shit. I need to be in the loop. Ooh, I've literally only been here a couple of hours, but let me see. There's a lot of people in Class 1A, about 20, and I don't really know what their personalities are. He looked over at me, and I waved him on to continue. Our teachers are Eraserhead, All Might, and Present Mike. There are more though I just don't know them yet. All Might, that sounds familiar. Is he a big deal in the hero community? Shinso stared at me like I had grown a second head. What? I'm a hermit. All I do is paint. Shinso shook his head and sighed. He's the #1 hero, Mikumo, the symbol of peace. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Oh yeah, Izuku wrote a bunch of analysis about that guy. And I think we have some figurines of him. Shinso gave me another look. What? I read the analysis, not the names. And why would I care about the merch of a random hero I would never meet? Then I paused again, going over Shinso's previous words. Wait a second. Mikumo, does that mean I get to call you Hitoshi? The lighting was low, but I could see him blush and immediately start to backtrack. But when I laughed and said it was fine, he nodded. All right, Hitoshi. I was about to tease him further, but something else occurred to me. Wait. What the hell is the #1 hero doing teaching a bunch of teenagers? Before Shinso could respond, a large crash echoed throughout the common room. Whirling around, we both stared at the shape who seemed to have tripped over the couch. I stared incredulously at the figure, then looked down and realized I was in something I would assume was a fighting stance. Slowly, I stood up. Are you okay? The figure slowly climbed to their feet, red hair gleaming in the dim light. He smiled and sent a thumbs up my way. Yeah, Mido, I'm great. Quirk's very useful for this kinda stuff. He rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. What are you guys doing up? Insomnia, answered Shinso. The new dude turned and looked at me, obviously looking for my response. Same, my social anxiety, well, not quite social anxiety, but something like that, came back full force. I never like to speak to people I don't know, and usually don't reply or talk in one-word answers if I can get away with it. I still have no idea why Shinso is fine but not other people. To make things worse, I suddenly realized I had no idea who this kid was, although they definitely knew me. I sent a panicked glance towards Shinso, who mouthed a word back at me. Kirishima. The kid, Kirishima, suddenly looked even more embarrassed. Well, I am feeling kinda homesick. This is a very new environment for me and I don't know. He looked down, dejected. It was obvious he didn't feel like he should be. Shinso must have picked up on that as well, because he immediately spoke up. No, I think it is very. He hesitated, not sure what to say to make Kirishima feel better. Manly to miss your family. Manly, what? For some reason, after hearing those words, Kirishima perked up like a puppy, smiling brightly. Really? Thanks, bro. The redhead bounced over to the couch he tripped over and sat down. Looking back at Shinso and can you believe we're going to be the next generation of heroes? I shook my head and watched Shinso kinda laugh. I mean, I always wanted to be a hero, but I never thought I would actually get into UA. Wild, right? It was getting awkward to continue to stand, but I didn't really want to sit down and thus make myself part of the conversation, so I slowly inched towards the kitchen and away from him. Thankfully, Kirishima didn't seem to notice. Oh, and Midoriya. I just wanted to say your quirk is fantastic. Yours too, Shinso. Right, I have a quirk now. Another quirk, or whatever the hell it actually is. My expression must have changed, because Kirishima backtracked. Not to say you don't have your own merits without it. Yeah, he trailed off. I almost wanted to reply with something nice, but I honestly couldn't. He didn't seem like a bad guy. I just didn't know him well enough to converse with him. Thankfully, Shin Hitoshi saved the day. Yours is great too, Kirishima, he replied. Then he turned his head to stare at me, his eyes asking me what the hell was with my sudden personality change. In response, I fled further into the kitchen and then into the stairwell, relaxing the minute nobody was nearby. A couple minutes passed before I heard a knock on my door. I quickly made my way towards it and opened it up, unsurprised to see Shinso standing in the hallway. Do you want to come in? He nodded, so I stepped aside and made my way to sit on my bed. Shinso sat at the chair near my desk. It was obvious he wanted to ask something, but wasn't sure how. Spit it out, Hitoshi. My utterance of his first name looked to have caught him off guard, but it also seemed to lessen his nerves. Well, what was up with you back there? I mean, you didn't do anything wrong, but your personality flipped. Did a full 180. I sighed, having expected this question. I don't really like strangers. At all. Ever. He looked a little hurt. Besides you, I mean, although I'm still not sure why. Listen, I'm only awake at 3 in the morning to 8 in the morning. A lot of those hours are not when the good, functioning members of society are up. To make that even worse, I have no idea how to defend myself or how to tell who I should be talking to or not. And even if you forget that most likely I would not be meeting good people, I don't really have a way to leave my house. If I wake up outside my house, most likely the first thing I would do is go back to it because I'm injured. I've really only had long-lasting interactions with about 3 people in my entire life, and one of those people is my mother. I spit the word out like it was foul. I have no idea about any social etiquette or anything like that at all. I don't even know how to be an actual functioning person, so I've always just tried to avoid any interaction I can. That way I don't need to guess the person's intentions and I can't mess up. Shinso just sat there after I finished, stunned. Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Are you going to be okay living in the dorms? I mean, probably. I'm sure I'll be fine overall. Kirishima just caught me a bit off guard. I'll be prepared for class tomorrow or today. Speaking of that, you should go to sleep. Shoo. I made the shooing motions with my hands and pushed Shinso out of my room. Sleep well. I then slammed the door in his face. Time passed fairly quickly after that. I only had a couple things to fill it up, like change my mailing address in the contest and see where all of my supplies were. Soon the sun had come up and I could hear people talking and moving around in the hallways. That seemed to be a pretty good indicator that I should get up. A forceful "Oh, good morning, Midoriya," was the first thing I heard when I opened my door. I blinked in surprise and turned my head to see a blue-haired boy standing in the hallway. I raised my hand in greeting. Not a morning person, I see. Still, you should try to make an effort to look more excited for your first day at UA. As he said this, his hands moved up and down in a very robotic way. Unsure, can this just be over already? Thankfully, once I got to the common room, it seemed like Robot Hands was the only person even slightly awake. That made it much easier for me to go get a granola bar and not interact with anyone until homeroom started. Good luck, Izuku. Please don't kill anyone or us. Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed the video, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.